me today, Joshua Mathew Black. If you don't know who Joshua is, he's one of the January 6th, 2021 protesters that entered the Capitol and was charged in relation to his actions that day. He was also shot unjustly by a Capitol police officer, which we will go into that story. Regardless of your opinion of what happened on January 6th, I'm not here to talk about what happened that day, the politics behind it, and stuff like that. I just want to hear about Joshua's perspective, how he ended up at the Capitol that day, and what happened to him after the fact of being at the Capitol. So with that, let me introduce Joshua Mathew Black.
Hey, Tyler, thanks for having me. Looking forward to a good conversation.
Of course, yeah. No, I was looking forward to having the conversation with you. I had actually not heard about your story. Of course, I know a lot of information about January 6th, but I don't know a lot of the individuals that were there that day. So it's really great to have a sit down and talk to you.
Well, I know less of the individuals than most of the other J6ers because when I was in D.C., I was isolated. So I didn't get to experience the C2B, experience, which I regret missing out on that because I tried to get into Gen Pop, but they just wouldn't do it because I took insulin shots for type 1 diabetes. So they kept me in the hospital, which is solitary confinement, but it's not technically. So,
yeah,
they can keep you as long as they want.
I saw previous interviews where you had mentioned about your time in solitary and the treatment you experienced in prison. For example, if I'm not mistaken, your wound from being hit in the face, right? It was left untreated for how long?
Indefinitely. The only time I got any treatment was about 3 months later, about 2 days before I got released from DC jail. They did some X-rays because I kept complaining that there was still plastic in there and I needed to get it dug out, and I didn't know when I was getting out. So,
so
and then I wound up getting a bond hearing, and they let me out because they found a video of me where I was protecting a cop, and the judge said, "Look, this, you got to let him out."
So from January 6th, the day you got shot, how long was it till you got released and actually had X-rays and stuff?
Well, actually, the X-ray I've shared on Twitter, the X-rays, but that I told my dad about it, and he says, "Look, I know a doctor who's not political because it was during COVID, and it was like all kind of trouble to get anything done, and he knew a guy that was an actual doctor." So I drove to where he lives, about an hour and a half away, and he brought me to a doctor that he knew, and he treated it and gave me some antibiotics. He goes, "We can't do anything until you take these antibiotics." And I took the antibiotics and I scheduled a surgery to close the hole up. And that was the day they arrested me. And I told them, because they lied to me. They said, "Oh, you just got to come in for a few minutes, answer a few questions. We want you to look at some pictures." And I said, looking at pictures, but that don't make any sense. I don't know anybody that I can't, I can't help you there. They're like, "Well, it won't take but a minute." I said, "Well, I've got a doctor's appointment. Can we do it tomorrow?" "No, it needs to be today. The FBI agent's already heading towards where you're going to meet at. And we want to." So they lied and lied and lied and lied, because if I'd have known that, I probably would have just went to the doctor and got them to put a couple stitches in it,
Right, because
they never did.
You went to the police and then they questioned you, and then you were immediately what is it? You're immediately arrested, basically, right?
Well, I went on the 8th and they questioned me and said there were no charges, and I was like, "Praise God!" I was going to share a video on YouTube, it's like, "Hey, look, God, I did what God said," and they said no charges. God said, "No, don't do that." And I was like, "Well, that don't make any sense." I argued with him. I was like, this is a great testimony. He goes, do not get on there." And I was like all day chomping at the bit, wanting to share a video about how God delivered me from getting in trouble. And God was like, "Do not share that video." And I was like, "All right, fine." I was mad, because it made total sense because I went on the 8th and they said no charges. I was so happy. I was like, "Okay, cool. This is great." So the next week, it was 7 days later on the 14th or 6 days later, they said, that's when they asked me, that's when I had the doctor's appointment. They asked me to come in and answer some questions, which was a lie,
So while you're, in custody, they can clearly see you have a hole in your face. They just ignored it.
Yes. Yes. They finally gave me some antibiotics in I think it was Pickens County Jail, somewhere in Pickens County, Alabama, which is like an hour and a half, 2 hours south of where I live. And they brought me there, and I stayed there for about 2 weeks. And the conditions were horrible. I mean, I was sleeping on a plastic bunk on the floor, and my face smelled like a sewer, like it was rotting, like it was it was gross.
Well, yeah, it was an open wound. It wasn't going to close on its own. You
Well,
should have seen a doctor.
well, the other inmates started complaining. Like there was one guy, there was a black dude named Carlos, and he was really friendly to me. He looked like he'd been in there forever, but he was real friendly. And he's like, "You can eat in front of me, my nose don't work." So I had to like sit. I had to eat with him on the end of the table, and there was nobody ever got near me because it was disgusting. It was worse than sewage. I mean, it was horrible. The smell was, and I couldn't get away from it. It was right here, my nose. It's like that far from my nose.
Yeah.
So it was, and then finally other inmates started complaining, like, "Look, y'all got to do something. He stinks, you know." And then it got septic, and I'm laying on the ground shaking and freezing, and like I sat on the ground the whole time on that little plastic bunk thing, and just shook for almost 2 weeks. And they finally got me some antibiotics, and then they were good antibiotics because they knocked it out pretty quick. So, but after about 2 or 3 days of taking antibiotics, then I was able to get up and finally got well enough. I didn't take a shower for almost 2 weeks because I couldn't even get out of my bunk. I was dying, you know.
Oh,
And
no,
then everybody's complaining because about how bad I smelled, and they finally said, "Here's some antibiotics."
that's
You know,
absolutely terrible. I mean, a regular prisoner. I mean, even like murderers and stuff that actually murdered people, when they get arrested, if they have an injury, that injury gets treated. So
correct.
just because you're a January 6th protester, they decide to ignore it. It's kind of what it feels like.
Why? Why?
Sorry, go ahead.
I said, I don't know why. I can't say what their motives were. It may just be the justice system. The whole thing's corrupt. You have no idea. I saw a lot of it, but I didn't see like a sand on the beach worth of it. You
Yeah.
know, it's unbelievable how corrupt it is.
Well, I mean, did any of the guards like even mention it? Like, did they even acknowledge that that was happening to you with the untreatment, the no treatment?
I never saw the guards. They would bring me my insulin shot like twice a day, 2 or 3 times a day, whatever it was. And we were inside of a cell. It wasn't a cell, but it was like a community cell. There was like 30 guys in there, and there was about 35. I don't know the actual number. This was a little bit smaller than some of the other ones were, but yeah, everything happened at the door. They'd bring in the food, and like everything happened through the door. So you go up to the door and you'd hand your tray, and then you'd get out of the way, and there was a line going to the door. When I got my shot, I went to the door, and the little hole, it was like maybe a foot wide, and you could barely stick your fist in it, you know.
Well,
So that, like, everything happened. So the guards never got near me in the first jail. So
I guess that definitely made it easier for them to ignore the issue then.
yeah, they couldn't smell it. It wasn't bothering them.
Yeah, and who's gonna listen to some prisoner that complains about a smell?
But once you go to jail, you're no longer human,
Oh
and
yeah.
you're treated like you're no longer human.
Well, I mean, you've lost all your rights at that point.
Oh, 100%. Yeah.
So that's absolutely terrible. What I wanted to hear more about is in your previous interviews, you mentioned how you spent, and on your Twitter, you spent 72 days. Did my mic cut out? You spent 72 days in solitary confinement. What was the justification for putting you in solitary?
Well, see, the justification was it wasn't technically solitary. It was I was in the hospital, and people in the hospital get a specific room.
Mm.
So it wasn't technically solitary. So I can't complain about it because I was in the medical ward because they refused to take me a shot and come check my blood sugar, you know. So like they would have had to walk across the building, which is pretty big, I guess. I only saw a small part of it, but they would have had to have walked across the building to render medical attention. So they just put me in the hospital because it was easier for them.
So
Which I understand. It makes sense, but I mean, they could have put me in there with. I'd rather been in there with, 20 or 30 other people.
Yeah. Well, yeah, no, I mean, no one wants to be alone. It's solitary confinement's a punishment for a reason, right? And even if you weren't in solitary, if you were in conditions similar to solitary, that's still bad. How long, like from when you were arrested, how long did it take you to get to the medical ward? And did they put you in the medical ward for the hole in your face, or was it something else?
They put me in the medical ward for the because I take insulin shots for type 1 diabetes, so that's why they put me in the medical.
So while you were in the medical ward, did you get any treatment at all for your face, or
2 or 3 days before I got released, before I got bonded out, they did some X-rays, but nothing ever happened.
nothing?
And by then, it already closed up because it was it was like 3 months. I did 27 days, 28 days before I got to DC, and I did 72 days at DC. So it was like 99 or 100 days that I did before court. And then, but the only time I saw a doctor for that was like 2 days before I got released.
So basically, you
So
went like almost 3.5 months without any treatment for the literal hole in your face. And I'll put up the pictures and the video of you being shot, over us talking, so people can see exactly what happened and what it looked like. And I'll share the X-rays that you have on your X account as well. Because
yeah, I was just standing there when they shot me. Like, it wasn't even, like, it didn't make any sense. I thought I got hit with a baseball bat because I'm assuming it was full of sand because I was spitting out sand for like 2 weeks, and there was plastic chunks like coming out of my face for 2 months, 3 months. That's why I finally got the X-rays, because I kept like trying to use my tongue and I couldn't get tweezers, or I couldn't get anything because you're in jail. They won't give you anything metal. So having some tweezers would have been nice to pull chunks out. But I've got pictures of chunks that I pulled out, and I've got a quarter beside it for a size reference, and it is pretty gruesome. I mean,
oh yeah. And do you have any idea why they shot you?
they were trying to start a riot.
You think so? Was there anyone else around you maybe that they were trying to hit besides you?
Well, when they brought the video to court, they said that I deserved it because there was a guy standing beside him with a camera, and he pointed at me, and he said, since he pointed at me, that meant I deserved to be shot, because he wouldn't have pointed at me if I didn't deserve it. And I'm sitting over there in court, and my lawyer said, whatever you do, don't say anything.
They actually argued that in court?
And I'm over there like, well, something about this, because yeah, that's what they said in court, was like, if he got shot, he got shot because he deserved it. And then they showed the video, and there's no video of me deserving it at all. I was just standing there.
I've seen the
You know?
video. It was before the barricades had been breached or anything. It was before they put out the gas or anything. You literally got shot for no reason.
Well, I was actually trying to help the cops most of the time I was there. I thought they were on, like, I didn't want the Capitol overrun. I wanted them to let us in. And I wasn't going to force my way in. I was going to be let in. It didn't wind up working out that way, but that was my intention. I got up until the cop said stop, and I stopped. Because as a Christian, you're supposed to obey those in authority, and that's what I live by.
Yeah.
I love to speed, but I go the speed limit because I'm a Christian. I love to go fast. Like, I get a V8, I'm in trouble. I've got a Harley sitting over here in my room, and it's like I can't hardly drive it because I'm going to wind up. I know me. Like,
Yeah.
I'll never buy a crotch rocket because I'd either wind up in prison or dead.
Right.
So I obey the law. That's the way that's just, as a Christian, I'm kind of obligated. So
Well,
I mean,
I don't want to shift away from I don't want to shift away from the discussion about your time in prison. But if you want to share more about that, we can go more into that. Or if you would like to explain to me how you ended up at the Capitol, like what brought you there. How did you end up in the crowd? How did you end up at the front of the crowd?
well, I went there because I felt like the Lord wanted me to. Like, it's hard to explain if you're not a Christian, but when I say the Lord told me, it wasn't like an audible voice that shook the room kind of thing. It was just, I knew I had to be there, and my conscience was telling me you have to be there. And I thought, I said, well, all right, and I wasn't sure, so I said, okay, Lord, I'm not going. And I felt like I'd sinned, and I said, okay, Lord, I'm going. And I had peace, and I was like, okay, I think He really wants me to go. And I didn't really want to go, so I kept praying about it and kept praying about it and kept praying about it. Wound up fasting for like 2 or 3 days, thinking about it, like trying to talk myself out of it, because I really didn't want to go, because that was a bunch of money I didn't want to spend. I'm cheap. I like to save money, but I couldn't get away from it. I knew I had to be there, and that's the best way I can explain it.
So, walk me through that day then, or walk me through the events leading up to that day. Where did you go first that day on January 6th?
Well, January 4th, there was a rally in, I think it was Rome, Georgia. I'm not sure. It was North Georgia. And I'd never been to a Trump rally, and I figured since it was over and they were stealing the election, then there wasn't ever going to be another Trump rally. So I figured if I'm ever going to get to go to one, I'd rather watch it on TV or YouTube. So I thought, well, I better go to one. And I went, and it was unbelievable. The patriotism, the peace, everybody was happy. It was like Woodstock without the drugs. This was the greatest. Like, I was like, this is amazing. I even went to this one black dude that had the shirt I wound up wearing when I went into the Capitol, but it said blacks for Trump 2020.com or something like that. And I walked up to him. I said, hey, look, man, my last name's Black. I said, where can I get one of those shirts? He goes, your last name's really Black? I said, yeah. I said, I'm the only black guy here. And he laughed. He goes like, I'll tell you what. He goes, you can have mine. I got a bunch of them. And I was like, all right, man, appreciate it. So he took it off right there in the parking lot and handed it to me. Wow. And I mean, that's just the whole thing was. It was just like really great. But there was also an air where like everybody knew that the two people that the senators that they was doing the rally for, we knew they were rhinos. So like nobody thought they were going to win, because it wasn't a presidential election, so people don't really show up, and they'd already stolen it all. So like you could kind of tell that everybody pretty much knew that they weren't going to win, you know. So there was that feeling in there too. But it's the same when I got to the Capitol. It was like I've never felt more patriotic. It was people were singing God Bless America. It was like these Chinese people were crying. That broke my heart because they were like talking in Chinese and they had a lady translating for us. She was like, we lived under communism, and if America falls, where do we go now? And they were like literally weeping. It was like, it broke my heart. I was like, oh my gosh, like, where are we going to go? There's nowhere to go, you know? Yeah. So that it's still, when I think about it now, I get about teared up because it's like, they were heartbroken. And there was like 10 or 12 Chinese people talking about, they had signs like, a bunch, I've got pictures of it. I don't remember what they said, but they had a bunch of signs they were holding, like, China wants the Bidens in there or something. Like, it was, but when I saw them weeping, like not a little bit of crying, they were like runny nose, full blown wet face, like it was full blown crying, and I was like, wow, like it might be worse than I thought it was, but it was, the whole atmosphere was, but it was peaceful. It was patriotic. It was, the Spirit of God was there. You could feel God's presence, but there was something in the air also that was like, something here ain't right. Like, I couldn't tell you what it was at the time because it hadn't happened yet, but I just, like, everybody had that look on their face, like something ain't right here, like where's Antifa? Because they always, like they go out and start busting heads everywhere they go, and they were nowhere to be seen. Nowhere. There was no Antifa anywhere, so that was kind of weird. Well, but the whole thing, like, I've never been more proud to be an American than I was before I got shot, Well,
how do you feel to be an American after this whole process?
Well, if Trump had lost this one, if they'd stolen this one, or if he'd just lost, then I don't know what I'd do. I mean, I really don't. I don't want to say on camera America would have been over. I really honestly believe that would have been the end of the American experiment, because
I share the same sentiment. I share the same sentiment there, because if Kamala had gotten in, who knows what, I sincerely feel like we'd be in World War III.
Well, they want that.
100%.
I mean, it's evil beyond comprehension.
Yeah,
it's selfish.
Regardless of what you feel, or how you feel about Trump or whatever, the options were in this election Biden, Trump, or Harris. And out of those three options, it's Trump every time. I mean, you look at the 4 years that he had, and if you don't count COVID, it was one of the best presidencies we've had in modern history. And that's just an unbiased opinion. That there's no, like, I don't go one. I try not to go one way or another. But lately, I've been leaning Republican just because the truth is on their side nowadays.
Well, eggs had 400% inflation.
Yeah,
my dad said I think it was my dad said he went and bought 6 eggs, and it was like $3 or $4 for $4 or $5 for a half a dozen eggs. He said, I used to could afford to buy the whole dozen.
Yeah.
And my dad's pretty funny, but he was like, yeah, I used to could afford a whole dozen. And it's like they keep saying 9% inflation. I don't know where they do math at, but there's been at least 100%.
I mean,
everything's done.
Yeah,
everything.
You can't trust the government when it comes to numbers and statistics. I mean, we look at crime statistics too, and where there's examples that happen all the time of Hispanic people being labeled as white after committing a crime, so that way they can skew the statistics. So they're always lying about the actual numbers and stuff like that. It's better to go off personal experience. Me, as someone who lives in California, yes, milk and eggs are up, gas is up, everything's up a lot, you know. So they're basically telling you not to believe your lying eyes, and you know people are waking up to it, thankfully.
Well, that's one thing I've noticed since Trump's election. It seems to me, and I don't know this 100%. It's not like God told me this, but I've just got a really strong feeling that God is opening people's eyes at a faster rate than ever before in history. It's like, look at what Zuckerberg said. And I don't know if he was, I mean, I'm not going to really comment on that because I don't know for sure, but I, in my gut, I think that he's serious. I think he got played and he realized it and he thought, wow, I'm an American, but I've been working for the enemy of America. And I think he's telling the truth. I really do. I mean, I don't know that for sure. God didn't speak to me. I can't say that was a prophecy or anything, but
Yeah.
I think he's waking up, and I think it's not just him. Like Elon Musk, he was a leftist, a liberal, a Democrat, maybe not far left, but he was a liberal, and now he bought X and gave us free speech back,
Well,
and now Zuck
so
getting
was
on
Joe
board.
Rogan. Joe Rogan wasn't on the side of Trump either, but now he is.
But it's happening. It's all over the world too. There's stuff happening. Trump is not even in office yet, and people are waking, like all that stuff going on in England. Have you heard about that?
Oh, of course, I've been following all that with the with the grooming gangs. I'll say I won't say the actual word. I can't say that on YouTube.
I mean,
Yeah, no, the stories
if you
that are
think
coming
that's
from that
okay,
are terrible.
it's worse than terrible. You haven't heard the actual.
Well, no,
Well, you may have because you were on Timcast on the after show when they were talking about that.
yeah, they were talking about it on Piers Morgan too. Tim was on Piers Morgan yesterday. They were also talking about it then, and yeah, no, the stories coming out of that, terrible is not a good enough word to describe it. You're completely right.
Unbelievable.
It's unhuman. It's inhuman what they're doing over there. Absolutely disgusting. But yeah, no. So how on January 6th, how did you end up at the Capitol? Like, I know in a previous interview you said you slept in your car the night before, or you slept in a hotel.
No, I got a motel. I was trying to make it there, but I made it to like 3/4 of the way up in Virginia, Virginia's a lot bigger than you would think if you're driving it. I never had any idea how long it takes to drive through there, but I was about 3/4 of the way up there, and I got pulled over by the cops, and they took because I had a light out. My tailgate has a light above the handle, and it was out. And he said, "Oh, that's illegal here. I'll write you a warning." And my heater had gone out, so if I was driving down the road, I had heat, but if I was stopped, the fan didn't work.
Yeah.
So I was there freezing. I'm like, "Come on, can we get?" And the guy was like, "Oh, I got a cop that's from Alabama. He wants to talk to you." So I sat there waiting on him for like 20 minutes. And he comes out talking about how great Alabama is. I'm like, "Thanks, bro," but I'm not like I'm freezing. Anyway, so I wound up I was like, "I'm gonna get a motel here." I sat there not driving for too long, and I was like, I'd lost my steam, So I got the cheapest motel I could find, and then got up early the next morning and headed in there. And I knew somebody. I found out as I was driving that a guy I knew was going to be there. So I called him and was like, "Hey, let me meet up with you. At least I'll be there with somebody I know." And I met up with him, and uh, I kind of felt right away that wasn't God's plan. So I just said, "Hey, man, I'm gonna go walk around and see what's going on." He's like, "All right, I'll be right here." And he's he's a good dude. He was the guy that actually I stayed in the because once they had the curfew after the whole thing was over, they were like, "Oh, the curfew at 6 o'clock," and it was 6:15, and I'm standing on the street bleeding, like I didn't know it, but I was like FBI's most wanted or something. And so I called him, and he let me stay in a motel with him. I didn't have to pay for it. That was cool. And he had some liquor, and I don't drink, but like I figured, since no telling what they shot me with and whether it was clean or not, so I drank the liquor and then leaned over at the sink and let it pour through it, and that hurt pretty bad. And then I never drank, but I was like hurting pretty bad, so I wound up taking a swig of it and swallowing it, which is the most I'd drank in years, and it knocked me out. I was passed out basically from one swallow,
Yeah.
But yeah, he knocked me out a lot. But anyway, I met up with him, and I just like this ain't it. And I kept trying to figure out because God sent me there, but He didn't tell me what or why.
Where
So
where did you meet him at?
He was it was just there's a museum with a weird looking building, and he said I'm right there, and I was telling him where I was, and he's like, oh, if you're coming out of that subway, then take a left, and he knew kind of where I was, and so he guided me there, and I just stayed on the phone with him until I met him. He goes, I'm standing right in front of this bench or this statue or something, and he was standing. I'm on the grass, and I was almost ran into him before I found him, but
Yeah.
you know, but
So
yeah, I met it with him.
so after you met up with him, decided that that wasn't the plan, that wasn't a good idea. Where did you go from there? You said you went walking around.
Well, I was going to go inside the speech, and that, since I had just been to the Trump rally in Georgia, I had the same knife on me that I had at the one in Georgia. But when I got up there, they said no knives, no weapons, no. So and my truck was about a mile away, but the Trump rally wasn't starting for like 2 or 3 because I got there way early, and so I walked back to my truck and put the knife in there, and then I went back to the rally and went in Georgia. But when I got to the one in D.C., my truck was like it take me 2 hours to go to my truck and back, and I was like, I didn't want to get rid of the knife because it was a gift from a Army Rangers Vietnam veteran, and
Mm.
it meant a lot to me. It was my dress knife. I don't even think I've ever cut anything with it. I just wear it just in case, because
Yeah.
you never know, might need to cut a piece of string or something. But I
Oh yeah.
always wear a knife, and this was my church knife. It was clean. It was razor sharp because it's never been used, but I didn't want to get rid of it because it had sentimental value.
Oh yeah.
A Special Forces Vietnam veteran gave it to him, and he said that he thought of me like a son, and I just couldn't throw it in the garbage. So I was like, well, I'm just not going to go. So I got to the gate and saw them doing the whole scanning thing again. I was like, I can't make it through there. I can't bring my knife back to my truck, and I'm not willing to get rid of the knife. I'll just watch the speech on YouTube when I get home.
Yeah.
I don't think God brought me here to listen to Trump because I can do that at the house. So I just started walking around looking for something to get into. I found a guy that was preaching what he called the gospel, but he was like, God hates you, and like just it was bad. And I was sitting there, so I started throwing him softball questions, trying to get him back on track about how the gospel's about God's grace, like you don't deserve it, but he didn't deserve it either, but he was acting like he did. And he was just hateful, like pushing people away. Like if I hadn't have been a Christian, I definitely wouldn't have wanted to be one. So I
Yeah.
started asking softball questions like, well, why do I deserve, like I was asking him easy questions to try to get him back on track. And then he just started like yelling at me. And I said, whoa, whoa, man. I said, I am a Christian. He goes, well, you're a liar. And I was like, whoa, this is not. And then I walked over and there was a dude beside him, and I could tell he was thinking the same thing I was. And I walked over, I was like, hey, what's up? He's like, man, I don't know what's wrong with this guy. This is not good for the Lord. Like, I don't know whose team he's on. I was like, yeah, this is bad. And he had a big megaphone so you could hear him for 50, 60, 80, 100 feet away. It
Yeah.
was not good. And I was like, well, maybe this is why God wants me here. Maybe this guy's going to run people off that God wants on his team. And it was just a bad situation. And I tried to help it, and nothing. And I wound up being that guy clicked right away. We knew, like, I knew he was a Christian. Like, you can tell them by their fruits, and he had the fruit. The other guy didn't, had zero fruit.
Mm.
And so me and him got to talking for a minute, and we're like, well, he could have been my brother. Like me and him were totally on the like I like loved the guy right away. Like instant friend.
Just
Didn't
instantly
get his
clicked.
number, didn't get his number or anything, but wish I had.
Yeah.
So
So
and if
uh,
that guy happens to see this video, man, leave me a comment. I'd like to talk. You if you remember that, then But anyway, I left there and I'm walking around. I'm not asking. I'm praying. I've been fasting for a couple days. I'm praying in tongues. I'm walking around. I'm just trying to keep my mind on the Lord. Like I'm here for a reason. I don't know what it is. I don't like. He didn't say, "Oh, go here and do this." He just said, "Go here." And so, all right, I'm here. What now? And I'm just like, I have no idea what's going on. Like,
yeah.
what am I doing here? That ain't it. So I'm going around looking for something to get into. I heard somebody preaching the gospel, and I walked up, and they were doing it right. They were sharing God's love, and they were, hey, you don't deserve it, but He gives it to you anyway. I was like, and I'm so like, well, maybe I should stand and help these people. And God's like, no, that ain't it. Every time I tried something, God was like, that ain't it, that ain't it, that ain't it. And I'm walking over here, and I heard this really good looking little girl, probably 18, 20, gorgeous. And she had a megaphone saying, after the speech, we're storming the Capitol. And it was like my spirit just lit on fire. And I was like, well, that's like, that was odd. But it like lit me on fire. And I was like, whoa, there's something here. And I was like, should I go to the Capitol? And right away, I was like, I knew God was like, yes, go to the Capitol. And I was like this Trump, the speech had barely even started, if it even had. And so I walked about a mile and a half, and I brought some money to give away because sometimes God will tell me to go give people money. And I thought, well, that might be why I'm here. So I brought $100, and I bought a hat because it was $5. I was like, well, I got it. The black hat I had, I bought it for like $5. I lost it, but I wound up getting another hat, but that's all the money I spent because I wasn't buying food. And I brought enough money for food, but I was going to give it away. So I wound up getting rid of it all. And I was like, well, I'm out of money. So I stopped at the bank and got another $100. And I'm just walking around trying to figure out what I'm doing. So I'm heading to the Capitol, and I thought, well, let me check my phone and see if I can, and then nothing worked at all. Like couldn't text, couldn't call, no internet, zero. It was absolutely, and the battery was like 7%, and it was 100 when I left the truck like 2 hours ago, or hour and a half ago. And I was like, well, that's weird.
Yeah.
So I went up and found this, there's this big like F-350, real nice truck. It was parked by the, I don't know what you call it, but right there right before you get to the Capitol, where the Ray Epps guy whispered in the guy's ear.
Yeah.
It was real close to that. The Peace Circle, I think, but it was real close to that. And I just walked up and I said, hey, I'll give you $20 if you'll let me charge my phone. She's like, what kind is it? I said, it's an Apple. She's like, oh, you're a communist? I was like, oh, real funny. She goes, no. She goes, I got an Apple. So she plugged it in. She goes, I'll keep your money. I said, no, I just want to bless you. God loves you. You've got a plan for your life. She's like, all right, cool. So I'm just standing over there and I'm praying, and I'm like, I got to give my phone time to charge. So that's all I was just trying to kill some time. So I started praying, and I wound up leaning up against the truck because my feet were starting to hurt, because I walk on grass all day, but I don't walk on concrete, and there's a big difference. So I'd been walking on concrete all day, so my feet were starting to hurt. So I kind of leaned up against the truck, and these two big, swole alpha dudes walk up and like, what do you do? Because their girl was in there, so they were like making sure, they walk over there. What are you doing leaning on my truck? And I was like, oh, I said, hey, man. And then the girl leans like, oh, he's okay. I talked to him. I'm charging his phone for him. Why are you doing that? He gave me $20. And guy's like, oh, okay, cool. And I said, hey, man.
If you didn't give her the $20, then she wouldn't have been able to save you like that, So there you go.
Right. So both of them, they instantly calmed down. Their demeanor changed. They weren't in protect woman mode, So then they were like, hey, so what's going on? And I was like, well, I said, look, man, I'm just here because the Lord told me to come. And I started trying to give testimonies of miracles I'd seen. And one of the guys was like, F this, and walks off. And the other guy was like, really? And he was like, I could tell his eyes were being open. Like so I was like, you can tell people that you can preach to and you can't, because some people, it don't matter what you say. You could raise the dead right in front of them and they wouldn't care. Some other people just say, hey, God loves you, and they'll start crying, so it's like, he was kind of in the middle of that, but I could tell he was like he'd never heard it before. And I was like, wow, it felt like this is why I'm here. God sent me here just for this dude, So I'm telling him about because I had my neck broken, and the doctor showed me an x-ray and said, there's no hope. This is his exact words. He shows me the x-ray and my neck looked like a little grenade had went off in it. He said, there's no hope of you ever walking again. No hope. That's the words he used. There's no hope of you ever walking again. The fact that you're breathing on your own is a miracle. And then he leaves. And of course, I was like 20 at the time. And as soon as he left, I started crying like a baby, because my first thought was, I'm never going to have sex again, and my mom's going to have to wipe my butt till I die. And I just started crying. Like I had no hope. I'm about to cry just thinking about it. But I'm laying there and I'm like, wow. And so I told him the story of that. And then and I kept trying to move my toe, because the way they had me in the bed was I could barely see my right big toe, and I couldn't move anything. All I could do was blink. My eyes filled up with tears, and I couldn't even wipe them off, and I couldn't lean my head over to dump the tears out. So I'm sitting there looking through a puddle, and I'm sitting there and it just hopeless. There was no hope. My mom walks in and she goes, you're walking out of here in the name of Jesus. So I was like, so I had hope. Didn't have any faith, but I had hope. And before that, I had no hope. So I wound up like, oh yeah, I forgot all about Jesus. I was worried, because I was like looking at my problem and I wasn't looking at my solution. So when she said that, she sat down and started talking to me, and she knew the deal. She knew that she's probably gonna have to wipe my butt for the rest of my life. So she's like, she'd start to cry, and she's like, I'll be right back. She didn't want me to see her crying because she wanted me to have faith. So she'd get up and leave. And she did this like 4 or 5 times. Whenever she'd leave, I'd try to move that toe and nothing happened over and over. It's like I was trying to pick up 1,000 pounds. That's what it felt like. And I'm just straining, trying to move that big toe. Nothing happened. If she comes back in, got her face cleaned up, I could tell she'd been crying, but she was trying to hide it, And then that happened 3 or 4 times. She'd leave, I'd try to move it, and then when she'd come back, I was exhausted from trying to, which is weird because you're not doing anything. It was just the trying, and nothing on my body. I was paralyzed from here down, like I should have been dead. And then she'd leave and cry, and then come back, and then I'd talk to her, and then she'd leave. And every time she'd leave, I'd try to move that toe. And then right before, my dad was a truck driver, and this was before cell phones, so like it took him a day to even find out, and then it took him a day or 2 to get there. So I don't know how long I was in a coma. It might have been 2 or 3 days. It might have been 20 minutes. I don't know. But he was out of town on the other side of the country. And when right before he got there, I started to move that toe, and it moved. And I was like, and I could feel a tingling going up my leg. And I was like, oh, wow. And then I started moving my foot, and I was like, well, maybe I should try to move the other foot too. And it moved immediately. And then it started tingling, started going up my body. And then all of a sudden I realized that my shoulder had been hurt, and I could feel my shoulder. And I was so happy to feel pain. It's weird to say that, but it wasn't it was just bruised. And I'm thinking, well, why didn't God heal that? But like, I didn't care because my feet were moving,
Yeah. You were just happy
and I
to
was
be able
like,
to move.
and soon as that started happening, before I even got a chance to move my arms, my dad walked in, and he says, boy, get out of that. Because he thought I just had an insulin reaction, and I'd had 100 of them. So this was nothing new. He was like, he was mad. You wasted my time. I could have caught a load back, and I had to deadhead back, losing money. He was mad, and I'm in here spending $20,000 a day on this motel or this hospital room, So he walks in, get out of that bed. We're leaving. He comes up, just yanks the IV out, He was mad. He's like, boy, get out of that bed. And I just jumped up, and he says, I'm going to get your clothes. We're leaving. So he left and got me some clothes, and I put them on. And as I'm putting them on, the doctor walks in. And it was like a student hospital, it was like a college kind of deal.
Yeah.
And so the doctor walks in with the x-ray, and I'm over here to his left, and he's holding the x-ray up in the air, like over his head. And he walks in and doesn't even look at me, but he's pointing at the x-ray, and he's telling all of his students. And there's this really hot little blonde chick who was like my age, and I'm sitting here thinking, hey, like, I got a chance now, like, of course, when you're 20, 21, like, anyway. But so he walks in, holds the x-ray up, and he's sitting there pointing at it. And he's like, he was like, when the L2 or what, I don't remember. It was like a bunch of big doctor words. I didn't understand half of what he said, but I kind of got the gist of it. He's like, look, when you got a situation like that, don't beat around the bush. Don't try to be nice. It's not your job. You need to tell them that there's no hope of them ever walking again, because it's going to take them some time to wrap their mind around it. So you want to hit them with it right away. Don't try to be nice. You're not here to be their friend. You're here to be their doctor. In a situation, as you can all see, this guy will never walk again. And that hot little girl looks over and sees me put my shoes on. So she looks back at him like, and then she started doing this, like, I don't understand. Is this a test? She was confused because he's saying one thing, and then she's looking at something else. And she's like, she held her little pen, like she had her hand on her, and she just kept. And then he noticed that the hot chick wasn't paying attention to him. So he saw her looking over there, and he looks up at me, and his jaw dropped. And he never took, the funny thing was, the whole time he was in the room, he never brought the x-ray back down because he was holding it up against the light, and his jaw dropped. And he stood there with his mouth open, didn't breathe for like 60 whole seconds. And he just stood there and stared at me. And finally he kind of like, and he looks at the x-ray and looks at me and did that about 4 or 5 times. And then he looks at the bottom corner and looks at my clipboard to make sure he had the right room. And he went back and forth about 4 or 5 times. And then he never shut his mouth. His mouth was hanging open. And he never put the x-ray down. And he finally just stood there with his mouth open, and he had this look on his face like, and he backs out of the room in total shock. Like it broke his brain.
Yeah.
And it's like, we got to go. So when I walked out of the emergency room, it was a neurological intensive care. When I walked out, every nurse in there had her mouth open, staring at me because I was a young guy, just broke my neck, every one of them in there felt sorry for me. Poor guy, every one of them was like, oh, that poor guy. They probably went home, told their family, this poor guy, 20 years old, cute little guy. He's probably, that his life's over. And so when I walked down there's one on my left. When I walked out, there was a couple behind the desk, and they just stood there and stared at me with their mouth open. And like it was, I wish I had a phone then, because the video would have been amazing. But like
Yeah.
when I walked out, every single one of them stared at me like, this is impossible.
Yeah, no,
Like,
that's
they're
miraculous. How did I may have missed it. I think you mentioned it. How did you break your neck? How did you end up there?
well, that's the part of the story. It's God told me not to go to a prayer meeting. Okay,
Mm,
strange, right? That's
little bit, yeah.
God would never tell you not to go to a prayer meeting, right?
You would
So
think.
you would think, so I called my friend. It was at his house. Actually, when I told you about the Bible study I'm going to, his widow is coming to give me a ride. So, like, I'm still connected with those people. Anyway, I called Scott and I was like, "Hey, man, God told me not to come to a prayer meeting." He's like, "There's no way God would tell you. That's the devil trying to lie to you, man. And God's got big things that are going to happen tonight. You got to be there. We've been like, the fire of God shows up every time we get together. Don't you dare miss this." He's like, "Do you really think God would tell you not to go to a prayer meeting?" And I was like, "Man, I don't know. God would never tell me that." He was like, "Well, you better be there, man, or I'm gonna come get you myself." And I was like, "Yeah, you're right." So I went to the prayer meeting, and it was like the worst prayer meeting we'd ever had. It was like God wasn't nowhere to, because normally it was like you could feel the presence of God, the peace, the fire, the love. You were almost drunk with His presence at every prayer meeting we ever had. Almost not every, but almost every one we ever had. It was amazing. It was like almost like a drug. But we're all sitting there looking at each other like, who's in sin? Like somebody here sinning, because like you couldn't feel God's presence, and it was weird because normally you could feel His presence, and everybody's looking around like something's wrong. Like, and everybody's like, I don't know what. And I thought, well, maybe that's why God told me not to go, because it was kind of a bad deal, bad session.
Yeah.
So it's like, all right. So I got in my truck and I'm going down. There's a It's over by Irwin High School. It's Roller Coaster Road, but there's a road on the side of it that's a roller coaster. And all I remember is shifting into fourth, and then I woke up in the hospital like 2 or 3 days later because I take insulin shots and I'd taken too much. I didn't eat enough, and I just
Oh,
passed out. And God knew that was going to happen, so He tried to warn me,
he didn't.
but I
Yeah.
didn't listen. So that's why when I went to the Capitol, I was well suited to be there, because God had told me to do crazy things before, and when I didn't obey Him, I wound up paralyzed. You know what I'm saying? So
Yeah.
He knew he. So when He said when He told me to climb the stairs, I was like, I argued with Him. I was like, I don't want. I've had all the protesting. I'm done. I've already been shot in the face. This is not what I came here for. But He's like, you said you would obey me, and I was like, yeah, I did. You're right. So I wound up obeying Him, but because His plans for me are better than my plans for me. And I knew that I just need to do what He told me, you know?
Yeah.
So,
And that's another thing I wanted to mention from your interviews that I saw. So after being shot in the face, the Capitol Police actually pulled you behind the barrier to administer aid, allegedly. But I know you didn't get any of that aid. And from there, you ended up actually walking around to the other side of the Capitol where there was another
right.
protest happening, right?
Yes. Well, they offered me aid 3 or 4 times, but I was like, no, I'm here on a mission from God, like the Blues Brothers. Like I'm on a mission from God. I'm not abandoning my post. But after about the third or fourth time, I started getting dizzy because I'd lost a tremendous amount of blood, probably quart and a half, 2 quarts, like a lot. Like I was about to pass out, and it wasn't my sugar because I checked it and it was all right. It was a little high, but it wasn't like it was fine.
Well,
Like,
yeah, when you get hurt in the head, you always bleed a lot, so you lose a lot of blood, especially when you have a straight up open wound in your mouth. I could imagine.
well, you should have
But
seen the
before we,
blood on the
oh, sorry.
You should have seen the blood that I spit out, because I spit 3 or 4 times when it first happened, and it was
Right.
like mouthful, like it was a lot of blood. But I
So
started getting dizzy, and then when the cop offered me aid, I was like, I kept saying, I'm with them, meaning the Trump supporters, like I didn't mean the violent people,
right.
but I was like, I'm with them. And then finally I started getting dizzy and I felt like I was going to pass out, and I knew it wasn't my sugar. So I have a lot of experience with passing out, so I knew like I'm pretty close to passing out. I better go get some aid, or I'm like, I could wind up, because in a crowd like that, you get stomped on,
Right.
So I was like, all right, fine. And then when they let me back there, he was like, hey, go talk to that person over there and they'll help you. So I walked over there, and then the guy in charge walks over and says, arrest that blankety blank. And this tiny little girl, about 5'1", about 80 pounds. She's like, I'm going to arrest you. I'm like, you're not going to arrest me. I didn't say that, but I was thinking the only way you're arresting me is because I'm letting you. Like there's no way she could have if I had, but I just put my hands behind my back. I was like, well, what God's got a plan. I don't know what it is, but and then the dude that got me back there that let me through the gate thing, the fence or whatever, the bike racks, he runs over there and says, hey, whoa. He didn't break through. I sent him back here for medical treatment. And the guy was like, well, get him the F out of here. He's like, and he walks me over to the edge and he's like, hey, sorry, dude, man. Like, it's crazy out here. I said, hey, man, we're praying for you. Like, I don't want to hurt you. Like, we back the blue. Like, we're Trump supporters. He's like, I know, man. And he's like, hey, go talk to that guy. And so I got through that there was a protester. And I went and talked to that guy. He's like, well, I'm not a medic. So the guy just got me out of there. They lie,
Yeah.
So somebody wound up like, because every 2 feet there would be 4 people say, oh, you need medical. You need, you better do something, man. You're going to have a scar. I'm like, chicks dig scars, but then finally somebody had some hemostat. Like they kept trying to pull them out with tweezers and it was not working. And it was just digging in. And I was like, dude, this hurts way too much. If you can't get it out, just stop. He's like, no, I can't get it out. And then I said out loud, I said, hey, if there's any potheads around here with some hemostats, that would work. And some dude was standing there like, yeah, man, I got some hemostats. And I was like, oh. So he click, and just pulled it right out. And I was like, oh, thank God for the potheads.
Right.
Like, but he pulled it out. And anyway.
So I want to talk about leading up to you being shot. So you went to the Trump rally. You couldn't get in, obviously, because you had a knife on you, which is understandable at a presidential rally. But I believe people should have the right to arm themselves with whatever. Which I saw in a previous interview. Someone in court had said that the Second Amendment is not related to knives; it's only related to firearms.
What my lawyer told me.
That's what your lawyer told. That's absolutely. So I have a story about that as well. I'll go and do real quick. I was almost fired from the grocery store I worked at simply because I had a knife on me on my holster, and they told me that if I continued to wear it, that they would fire me. And I brought the point up to them. I can't have a knife on me, but we have the people working in the produce section that have a knife that is 6 inches long, and they have it in an unsecured holster. I can walk up and slip it out as easy as like the flick of my hand. So they can have that on them, but I can't have one that's literally buttoned and secured to my pocket.
Right.
So
I asked my lawyer, I was like, hey, okay, so if I broke into your house with a knife, would you say that I broke into your house armed?
Right. No, that's exactly. They wouldn't say you're unarmed. At that point, they wouldn't say, so that's just a ridiculous argument. Ridiculous. So you go to the Capitol. Obviously, you can't get in because you have a knife on you. You have a very important knife on you, so you're not going to get rid of it, which is I completely understand. So you end up walking around. You find yourself at the Capitol. How do you end up at the front of the crowd?
I was one of the first ones there. Yeah. Because I was on a mission from God. I didn't know what I was doing, but he said go to the Capitol, so I was going to the Capitol.
Well, and you heard people talking about rioting at the Capitol too. You heard people saying storm the Capitol, so you're like, oh, I better go there, right? Because you wanted to protect people.
Yeah. Well, my original thought was that they were going to see the fraud and they were going to overturn the election, and then all the BLM and Antifa people were going to go in there and start smashing people.
Another summer of love.
Another song, yeah, because that's what I've been watching on TV for like 2 years, so that's what I was expecting. So I was there to help defend the Capitol in my mind, I was going to do what God told me to do, but I wasn't. He never said what to do. It was like he only gives you a step at a time, and if you don't listen, then he won't give you step 2. You know what I'm saying? But step 1 was getting there, and I did that. So once I got there and wound up, but anyway, I saw some instigators getting into it with the cops, and I was like, this ain't cool. This ain't what we're about. So I got up there, tried to get in between them, and I stopped a lot of stuff. There's a lot of it happened 4 or 5. It wound up by the time I left the front where I was, it was relatively peaceful because there was one guy. He was he had 2 people in front of him. He reached up and the cops had a plastic face mask that you could grab it on the bottom. But the guy reached up and grabbed his face mask and yanks him into the crowd, and then he backs up, and the cop, his head's down and he can't see, so he starts swinging his baton and hits the the people in front of that dude. He's got two people in between him and the cop. So he grabs the guy, yanks him into the crowd like hard, like almost knocked over. He hits those two guys and he pushes off and starts swinging because he thinks it's that guy did it. So now that guy's getting beat up by the cop. So he pushes the cop and now he's in trouble for assaulting an officer. When he had nothing to do with the cop, hit him for nothing.
Yeah.
But that guy, and they kept doing it. I started noticing it. These people they're picking fights with cops and then they're backing up, or they'll push a cop over like this and then he'll beat on the guy in front of him, and they they were trying to get something started.
Yeah.
And when I saw that, I called him out. I said, "Hey, this guy's Antifa."
Yeah.
And he's like, "Crap." So like he wound up slithering away and going like about 30 feet to my right. And I couldn't do nothing about that, but 30, 40 feet over and started doing it over there, but I couldn't do nothing about it. But it happened a lot. People they would, like I saw this one guy, he's wearing a blue sweatshirt with a red shirt underneath it. And he would go up to the cops and he had his hands like this and he was like fake fighting them. He was like, and I looked at him, I've seen the video of it and I'm like, that's so retarded. Like, and this guy was instigating. I don't know who he is, but this guy was instigating the whole time he was there. Yeah. He was trying to get it started,
A lot of people talk about that. A lot of people talk about stuff like that. There was a lot of instigators and agitators there. Like 95% of the crowd, maybe 99% of the crowd was there to be peaceful, but there was people in the crowd trying to agitate people, trying to get them riled up and try to get them to push in further past the cops. And that's ultimately what ended up happening, right? Because I know from previous interviews, I'll let you talk about it. So, you're helping people where you can. You get to the front of the crowd, you're protesting, you're looking around for what you need to do next. You get hit in the face. What happens following that?
Well, my bell got rung, and it knocked me kind of stupid for a minute because somebody asked me a question. I was like, "God bless America, blood, sweat, and tears." I got my bell rung pretty hard because it knocked me all the way around. Like it turned my feet. You know what I'm saying? And I thought I got hit with a baton, so I threw my hand up to defend, and I look around, there's nobody standing there, and I couldn't understand it. And then I started spitting blood, and I felt something caught on my lip. You know how you spit, and there was something caught on my lip, and I was like, oh man, they knocked my tooth out. I was like, oh man, this is going to cost a fortune. So I grab it, and it was a clear piece of plastic, and I was like, it didn't make sense, because like my brain wasn't working completely at the time, because so I'm looking at him like, well, this don't make any sense. And then that blue sweatshirt dude grabbed me by the arm like violently and dragged me. He's like, they shot him in the effing face. They shot him in the effing face. And I'm over there like, what's like, I'm like, wait a minute, this guy's instigating the crowd. So I yanked my hand away. I said, whoa, man. Like, nah, dude, like, just chill out, And I wasn't really I was kind of out of it there for a minute, but once the blood quit pouring out, somebody gave me some gauze or something. I stuck it on the inside, and it was a lot of spit and blood. Somebody gave me a water bottle, and I was spitting in that because there's feet everywhere. I didn't want to spit on blood on people,
Yeah.
So started spitting in that bottle, and I filled it up like halfway, and there was already like a cord on the ground, So, and then after that, the cop finally third or fourth time was like, "You need medical?" I was like, "Yeah, I do," because I was getting kind of tipsy,
So
felt like I was drunk,
Do you feel like that guy was trying to instigate the crowd? He was trying to use you as a pawn to be like, look at this guy. We need to attack now.
Well, that exact same dude, I've seen him in probably 10 minutes of video starting fights, and he did it the same way. He put his hands up like this, and he'd go up to the cops, and he'd just wiggle his elbows back and forth, and he just kept doing that.
Yeah,
He'd go up to the front, he was trying to get them to push him so he could. When he got pushed, he would hit the people behind him and then be like, "Can you believe they did that to you?" That kind of thing. He was, stirring it up, trying to get it started.
Yeah.
And that's all he did the whole time he was out there. And then when he grabbed me by the arm, I didn't know that at the time. He was just a dude. But he was like, "They shot him in the effing face. They shot him in the effing face. Look at this." And I'm over there like, it's kind of nice being the center of attention for a minute. And then I realized, wait a minute, this ain't godly. This ain't.
Yeah, you realized what he was doing. You're like, no, that's not the way.
Right. Because there were evil spirits there, and it was easy. It was like people that didn't go there with the intention of being violent that wound up getting violent. It would have been easy to do that. If I hadn't have been praying and fasting, I probably would be in there for a lot worse stuff. Yeah. Because it was the momentum, the crowd mob mentality was very, very strong. It was hard to not get drawn into it.
Especially when
And he
people are agitating in the front, trying to start fights and getting other people to get hurt. It's definitely going to agitate the crowd.
Well, the ones that were doing it were experienced and they knew exactly what they were doing. I talked to a leftist in one of the jails I was in. It might have been Oklahoma. I can't remember where it was, but he said that he was a lefty. He goes, man, them Antifa guys will show up at our thing. It'll be peaceful all day. As soon as the sun goes down, they'll start burning stuff, and they don't represent us. And he was like skinny jeans, like man bun. This was a little like lefty, but he was talking. We were in the same cell, so we kind of had to talk, But I was trying to tell him about Jesus. That didn't work out too good. But he was saying, yeah, and that kind of shined some light on it. I was like, well, maybe they've done that to y'all too. He was trying to make it out like the left ain't evil, which they kind of all, like that's another story.
Nowadays it's kind of hard to argue against. We can go into political stuff here in a little bit. I would love to hear your opinions on some of the stuff happening in the country. But Tim Pool talks about exactly what you're talking about. People go to people go to protest, and then they end up having these agitators there that piss off the cops, and the cops, crowd them all and just arrest all of them. And then when they go into the prison with them, they're like, you see what they did to us? You didn't do anything wrong. Look at that. Look at what they did to you. And they're trying to radicalize people. They're trying to get you to become radicalized and go against whatever they're trying to go against.
Well, somebody said something on Twitter. I don't remember who it was, but he said something like, where do you think they trained for this? I'm like, they've been training on TV for years. The Summer of Love was training. These people I don't know if they're professional, but they know exactly what they're doing. They have a lot of experience doing it. They did it with the leftists. That's why it didn't work as well as they had intended, because they wanted a Reichstag. They wanted us to kill people. They wanted us to kill the cops. They wanted us to burn the building down, like mass mayhem. They wanted a body count.
Yeah.
But Trump supporters, it just didn't work out that way. There was some violence, but it wasn't near what they wanted. They wanted us to destroy it all.
Yeah.
And that was their intention, but it just didn't work out because the leftists, it's easier to get them going because they're sheep, they'll follow anybody.
And no, we can talk about that all day. And one of the funniest comments I've ever seen related to the January 6th stuff is the most armed political party in history committed an insurrection and forgot to bring all their weapons. Like, just if anyone was trying to do anything that day, you would think they would have thought to bring their weapons, the most armed political party, but that's besides the point. So so you get hit in the face. This guy's trying to agitate people. You get pulled behind the barrier. They don't really help you, and they tell you to kind of just screw off. So where do you go from there?
Excuse me. Well, facing the Capitol, I went off to the right, so he brought me out through behind the bike rack, and I went off towards the right, and I wound up like, all right, Lord, now what? Like this is like the don't go to a prayer meeting thing. Oh, go to the Capitol so you can get shot in the face. That doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
So I'm kind of, whoa, what am I doing here? Like this, like, what have I done? Like, this is, like, I'm kind of like second guessing myself. Did I really hear from God? This just like getting shot in the face just doesn't seem like the thing God would like, set you up for, So I'm over there. I think I'm about 90% sure it was Vernon Jones because he was at the Trump rally on the 4th, and he was coming out, and there was this skinny white dude, and it was Vernon Jones and this shorter black lady. So I'm assuming it was his wife. Might not have been, but I saw him walking towards where these trailers were. And this skinny white dude was like, hey, that's one of them. We need to do something bad. I don't remember exactly what he said. And there's no video of it. I've searched, and because it was over on the side. Wasn't a whole lot of people there. But he was like, hey, that's one of them blankety blank Democrats, And so I made a beeline to where Vernon Jones was standing, and he kept walking, but I made a beeline to where he was standing at that moment. And as he kept walking, I kept going there because I was trying to get in between them, and I was in like soldier mode. Like I wasn't going to let this guy, because he had been a Democrat and now he supported Trump. So I figured he's my people. I'm not going to let him get in trouble. So I got over there and I just looked at the guy, and I'm all nasty, like bloody dreadlocks, and I looked at him like, try me, buddy. I didn't say anything, but I gave him that look like, I dare you. and he just kind of like, he looked around like, where's my people at? He looked around like this, and then he just kind of slumped his shoulders down and just walked away, and he didn't. So I turned around to see Vernon Jones, like, hey, man. And he was gone. I don't know where he went, but he just disappeared,
Yeah.
So I was like, well, already. And then I couldn't walk 5 feet without somebody saying, hey, man, you need medical. Hey, man, you're a patriot. Like, I was like, would y'all please just leave me alone? I'm trying to pray,
Yeah.
So I wound up walking over there. And by the time I got over there, all the adrenaline had died off. And I'm just like I had all I wanted, And I felt like the Lord wanted me to go the other side. And that's the only reason I did. So I walked over there, and I was standing at the bottom of the stairs. And there was this cute girl on top of this SUV dancing. So I was like trying not to look at that because, a godly man is still a man. You know what I'm saying? So I'm trying not to look at her. And then there's this dude on the other SUV that said fags for Trump. And I was like, is this what we've come to? So I'm just down there like, all right, now what, Lord? You want me to go jump in a wood chipper, Like, and I'm being, God's still working on me. You know what I'm saying? But I'm just down there like, Lord, I've had all I want. He goes, go to the top of the stairs. I was like, Lord, they're spraying each other with pepper spray up there. I was like, I don't want no part of that. I said, besides, Lord, I can't get up the stairs and I pointed at the stairs. I said, there's no way I can get up there because people are so tired. Before I could even finish saying it, like an 8-foot wide path opened up. And I was like, I actually said this while praying. I said, crap. My excuse was gone. So now I don't have an excuse. Yeah. And God was like, said you would do what I told you. It's put up or shut up. And I was like, yes, Lord, I'll do it. So I went to the top of the stairs, and I'm like, I really did. I was ready to go to the house. I had all I wanted. I was like 44. I've been walking on the concrete all day, doing shot in the face, lost a bunch of blood. I was hungry because I've been fasting for days. And I'm like, I just don't have the strength for this. Walking up the stairs like to kill me. I was like, I need to sit down, I was getting to the top of the stairs, and it was mayhem. There was 5 or 6 cops. They'd all been pepper sprayed. They're trying to get to safety. And I saw one going to the left, and another one was getting drugged to the right. They were grabbing a hold of them and pulling them into the crowd. There's no way I could get there because there was 8 or 10 people between us, and it was like pressed together, So I tried to get over there and help the guy. He was down on his hands and knees trying to walk, and I could tell he was blind because he actually fell on his hands and knees because there was so much pushing and shoving. And he was like, you could see his face. He had the red. His face looked just like the dudes that had just walked down the steps.
Yeah.
Like I see that part. That's why the thing opened up 8 foot wide, because all the protesters that got pepper sprayed were holding on to each other, walking down the stairs. And the guy in the front was waving his hands back and forth like a blind man walking kind of deal. Yeah. And so everybody got out of it. That's how I was able to get up, because all the pepper spray, and I saw their face, and the cop's face looked exactly like theirs. So I was like, well, this guy needs help. So I tried to help him. I couldn't because the crowd was just too crazy. But I was like, hey, man, I got down and yelled in his ear. I said, hey, man, you're good. Just keep going straight. You've got some cops about 30 feet in front of you. If you just keep going straight, you're good. You're not, you're not going to fall off anything. You're just keep going straight. You're good. And he was like desperate. Like he was in a crowd of, basically enemies. Don't take that out of context, but he was in a crowd of opposition, and he was blind. He couldn't see it. So I was like, hey, man, just keep going straight. You got some people over there, and then I wound up right in the front, and everybody was going, heave ho, and it like to kill me. I mean, like I was breathing, like my lungs were pressed so much that I couldn't inhale because I couldn't, like my chest was being pressed so hard. So I was basically breathing like, because I couldn't move, like I couldn't inhale.
Yeah.
So I was just breathing as fast as I could. And I'm like, and it's coming out the side, so I'm like trying to breathe, trying not to die. And I honestly thought I was going to die. So if God hadn't have told me to be there, I would have been afraid.
So you get to the top of the stairs, you're seeing these people get hurt. You want to help them, you can't. So then you're still up at the top of the stairs at this point, right? So right. After getting to the top, you're like the first one to the top. You just have like a crowd of people follow right behind you and start pushing you in?
I wasn't the first by a long shot. There was thousands of people. Like it was a bottleneck because the way the building's designed, it was like the door was like right here. And then there was like an alcove, I guess you'd say.
Yeah.
It's like a funnel, and everything was getting pressed in there. And these cops were like, it was like 2 cops that hadn't been pepper sprayed against 10,000 people, 5,000 people, whatever it was. And everybody was from the bottom of the stairs everybody or probably halfway up the stairs. Everybody's pushing, and it's all going into that thing. And somehow I wound up in there on top of a cop, and then they opened the door, and it opened out. That's what I was trying to tell people, like, hey, quit pushing. The door opens out. I don't care if you got a bazooka. You're not getting in that door.
Yeah.
It was like the heaviest doors I've ever seen in my life. A semi truck would have had trouble getting through it. You know what I'm saying? Like this, you would have had to have a bazooka.
Yeah.
You know, like this was not some we're going to push our way into kind of door. But everybody just kept pushing because they're stupid.
Did you ever find out how the door got open? Because I know that those doors, they have those really strong magnetic locks. Do we know how they got opened?
That's a really good question, and I would really like to know the answer to that. Because if they'd have never opened the door, you know.
Right, and they had to really open from the inside. It's not like all those protesters shoving against a door that doesn't open that direction is going to all of a sudden, get the magnetic locks to open. So it's definitely something that I think everyone would like to know. How did the doors get opened in the first place?
Well, you know how the cops have that bar thing with the handles on it that they bust doors down with?
Yeah.
If you had two guys out there all day long, they would never get through those doors.
Oh, no, you could have two Marines slamming all day at that. It's not going to open.
If they took shifts all day long with like 10 dudes that were swole as could be, you're not getting in that door.
Yeah.
Like it ain't happening, you know? So yeah, but I saw somebody have a red hat on, open the door because I was kind of smushed, you know. Then the door opened, so I'm behind the door now, and I'm on my wound was on the cop's like shoulder, and that was not what I wanted, but I could not move at all. I couldn't even breathe.
Yeah.
You know, and luckily this guy was ripped, so he was strong enough to get himself out. But I couldn't do it. There was nothing I could push off of. I was totally incapacitated. Well, and that dude,
I'm sure you're already weak from, losing all that blood. You're diabetic. You're having to walk around you've already walked around so much that day. I'm sure you're already kind of weak from that. I would imagine it'd be hard to pull yourself up out of a crowd that's just shoving against you. If for anyone, even someone that wasn't tired, it'd be difficult.
Right.
So,
once the door opened,
the door's open, and then what?
He's like, his right shoulder's on the wall and his left shoulder's on the door. So he uses that to kind of inch his way forward. And I'm trying to help him, but I really couldn't. And so once he got around, he winds up pushing me out. And he gets the door. He grabs the outside the end of the door, the skinny part. He grabs a hold of it and pulls himself around. So when he goes through the door, I'm basically glued to him, you know. And they showed that picture in court where they said they tried to get me for assaulting an officer because I went in between two cops. And that was like,
is that so I did read that online. You were accused of shoving a police officer. Is that when you shoved a police officer, or is that a different situation?
I never had any charges for that. So,
I don't know. Okay, it says that online. So that's just Google outright lying about you then.
Yeah, I never got those charges, but they did like kind of threaten me with it. You know, like if you don't sign this plea deal, then they're going to get you for assaulting an officer. You know, but I was like, I never saw. Well, they wouldn't show the video of me coming in the door. I've never seen that, but they showed the picture of me in between the two cops.
So they have to have a video of it, right? If there's a picture, there should be video, right? You would imagine.
You would imagine, yeah. But I was just trying to get in there to breathe because I hadn't breathed like a full breath in like minutes.
Right.
You know. Like, I don't know how long you can hold your breath, but it's not as long as you need, you know?
Yeah,
like,
definitely.
I finally got inside and I'm looking around like, what do I do now? And I was like, I just need to pray. I don't know. What am I doing? Like, there's no way I'm getting back out that door. I'm going to go have to find another door. So I just started walking around. And when I got to my lawyer, I met him at his house like a couple days before the trial. And he asked me, he goes, did you go up any stairs? I said, no. He goes, will you swear to that in court? I said, yeah. And then he showed me a picture of me going upstairs. He goes, that's why you're not testifying. I said, yeah, probably a good idea. Because I'd forgotten all about it. I would have sworn in court that I didn't.
Right.
And I still don't remember it. If he hadn't showed me the picture, I'd have called him a liar, you know. But he showed me a picture of me going upstairs. I said, well, I guess I did. Because I thought I went to the right, but they started, because I got to see them. They had me tracked all the way through there, you know. And I'd forgotten, like I went up on the second floor, I'd forgotten all about that. There's a whole bunch of stuff I don't even remember, you know? So like I wanted to testify, because I would have had an opportunity to preach the gospel on the record, But I did. It would have been a bad idea. So
Well,
anyway,
I'm sure there was so much happening that day that it kind of took a few days for you to, what is it? Gather your thoughts about just everything that happened, right?
Well, plus it was 4 years ago now.
That
So
too.
at court,
Yeah.
it's like 3.5, 2.5, 3 years ago. It's like I can't even remember what I ate for breakfast yesterday.
Right.
So, but
So the
yeah.
doors open, the crowd starts getting through. What do you do then? Like once you get out of the crowd, you can breathe again. Where do you go?
Well, I took a left and went up the stairs. I thought if I hadn't have seen that, I would have told you that I took a right and walk down and find somewhere to pray. But that's not what happened. I took a left and went up and went down a hallway. And there was you've seen the fight scene where these cops, like these dudes are like bucking up on the cops and the cops wind up retreating and go down the stairs. When I saw them, I knew, I thought, I had a feeling like these cops aren't happy about getting pushed back. And these dudes looked like they were ready to fight. And
Yeah.
so I yelled at them. I said, we will not stand down. So I was like, well, that'll hopefully give them time to, you know, like go get some help. Because if they can't, because the dude that was looking at, like there was 2 or 3 dudes that were like ready to throw dukes. They were ready to fight, and I could tell. Like I wasn't always a Christian, so I could tell,
Yeah.
And so I yelled at them to. I was kind of threatening them, I guess, but I was like, I was doing it so they wouldn't come back. Like I didn't want them. If they'd have come back with just them two, it could have been bad. And these dudes, there was like 15 dudes, and there was 2 or 3 in the front. And
Just
so,
to clarify, who were you yelling at? You're yelling at the guys, not the cops, right?
the cops when they
You were
went
yelling
down
at
the
the
stairs.
cops. Okay.
Yeah, I
So,
said, "We will not stand down. We will not stand down."
hmm.
Like, and I'd forgotten about that completely. They showed me the video of it, and I was like, "That ain't me."
So
He's
they
like,
had
"Are you
video of
sure?"
that, but they didn't have video of you at the door. It
But
makes a lot of sense. Makes a lot of sense. I mean, of
but
course
I'd forgotten all about
you'd have
it. The
video
first
in the
time I
hallway
saw it,
upstairs. You wouldn't have video on the door, of course. That makes sense.
well, the first time I saw that video was in court, and I was shocked. I was like, "What?" I thought this is fabric, like because I had completely forgotten about it.
Yeah.
Like completely. So, I mean,
I don't know.
but anyway,
Do you know if it was real? It could have been AI. I mean,
I honestly don't know. I don't remember doing it, but I remember I saw the video, and
yeah.
so I'm assuming I did because that's what I mean. That's the only way I would have done that. Because I know me, I know how I am, I know how. Like I'm pretty consistent. I'm not going to treat you one way and treat him a different way. Like I'm usually pretty consistent. And if that was true, then the only reason I would have done that would have been to keep them from fighting. Because Jesus said, "Blessed are the peacemakers." So if you can make peace, do it.
Yep.
Not at all cost, but I mean, if them cops had been beating some dude on the ground, I would have fought the police.
Right.
And if a dude had been beating the cop on the ground, I would have fought the dude.
Right.
So it was about groups. It was about,
Just
it's like somebody's
like you
beating up
said,
a
keeping
woman.
the peace. You're just trying to keep the
Yeah,
peace.
right. Now, if it's a fair fight, 2 guys throwing dukes, I'm not getting involved. Y'all finish, But
Yeah.
if one guy wins and then starts stomping on his head, well, I'm gonna break it up.
Yeah, now you've got an issue.
You got to have rules. You got to know what you're gonna do before you know what I'm saying. But
yeah,
anyway,
sorry, I was just
go
going to
ahead,
make
go
one
ahead.
point. That I think that's one of the biggest things we see in society today is that no one has any respect for one another. People get into fights and they're not just satisfied with winning the fight. They have to end you. So it's really scary nowadays. That's why I tell people all the time, don't get in fights. It's not worth it because you don't know how far that other person's willing to go.
Right.
But anyway, you were saying, so you're yelling at these cops to stand down. You saw the video in court. Where do you kind of go from there?
Well, I don't know exactly how I got from there to where I found a little spot. It said Senate entrance or U.S. Senate or something like that. And I opened the door, but it was locked. And I was like, I need to get in there. That's what, like, I knew I needed to be in there. And I was like, well, I'm going to break the window. And God said, no. And it was like, it scared me because I was like, oh, because I was like ready, like, I mean, I'd had a rough day, you know what I'm saying? Yeah. And I just knew I needed to get in the Senate, but I was like, I'm going to break the window. And God like yelled at me basically because I was like, I could just take my knife out and smash the window and like open the door. This will be no problem. But
you
like
knew
before
that
I
would
could
be wrong. You knew that wasn't the right way.
Well, I didn't know it was wrong, but God was like, don't do that, And I was like, like I said, I have no idea what I'm doing. Like I had no plan at all. And I was like, I wanted to pray. I wanted to plead the blood of Jesus on the Senate floor. And I figured I'm at the door. This is close enough. So I got down on my knees and started, and nobody's around. That was a little bitty hallway. There's a little stairway right there. And so I'm down there and I'm praying, and it was like I could feel the fire of God. And it was it brought tears to my eye. It was so powerful. It was like I could feel his presence. I could feel his love. And I was like enjoying it. Like I loved, the Bible says in the presence of the Lord is fullness of joy. And I was like maxed out. This was like this is amazing. Like I love the presence of God. And I was just like, I mean, I was crying. Like it was a powerful moment. And then I was sitting there, and all of a sudden these dudes come around there, blankety blank, blank, blank. And I was like, and that just like killed the buzz, you know? So I was like, so I stood up and I was like, cause I didn't want to be down on my knees with all these, like, cause there's some crazy people there that day. So I stood up and I'm like, what do I do now? You know?
Yeah.
And then soon as I thought, what do I do now? Some dude says, hey, here's the door to the Senate and it's open. And I was like, I need to get in there. So as soon as I walked in the door, it was a little bit congested. There was 3 to 8 people there. It was like, it's hard to remember exactly, but it was kind of congested at the door. So as I walk in, the group of people kind of like split out like that a little bit. And there was these 2 or 3 dudes that were knocking tables and chairs over. And these desks are like 1800, early 1800 school desks.
Yeah.
They're tiny. You wouldn't think, like a fat guy could not sit there. Like these were made for people my size from like the 1700s or whatever.
Right.
You know, but it was the room was incredibly small. It shocked me. I was expecting that thing to be like a humongous, you know, but I'm thinking, how do they fit 100 people in here, you know? But anyway, he starts knocking the tables and the chairs over, or the desks. They're like school desks, basically. So he starts knocking them over, and he grabs a folder off the top and flings it up in the air, and papers go everywhere. And I said, whoa, wait a minute, dude. I said, you were just saying whose house, our house. Stop tearing up my house. And of course, I'm bleeding from the face, and I look like scary looking, you know. And I think that's why people, when I said something, they usually did what I said, because like I was like, whoa, this guy ain't playing.
Oh yeah, they look at the big hole in your face and they're like, all right, don't mess with him. He's not playing.
Right. So there was 3 of them, and the one in the middle looks back and forth like this, and they looked at each other, and they had that, I don't know what, like, you know, I wish my camera was zoomed out a little bit more, but they were like, I can't get it in the screen. Sorry. But
no, I can see your hands. I can see your hands.
But they were like back and forth, like, what do we do now? Like, I don't know. Like, that's what it, like, I don't know.
They didn't expect to get called out.
Yeah, because they had momentum when they went in. They were like, F this place, knocking tables over. Yeah, let's burn it to the ground. You know, and I said, whoa. You just said whose house? My house. Well, if it's my house, stop tearing up my house. I said, do you treat your house like this? And they're like, oh, like, yeah, they don't.
Well, some of them might, so.
But so they're looking back and forth to each other for a minute. They're like, it looked to me at that moment, I was like, that stuck out to me, because I was like, these people came in here with a plan.
Yeah.
Like they look back at each other like, well, what do we do now? They didn't say that out loud, but they said it pretty loud. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
You wouldn't have to be a very intelligent person to be able to read that of what they were saying.
Yeah.
Because you know how like when you talk to your wife, you don't have to use words. You can just give her that look and she knows exactly what you're saying. It was that kind of thing, you know, like you could tell what they were saying.
But, I'm not married, but I do have a long-term girlfriend, so I do know what you're talking about to some extent.
But it was, well, you know, there's nonverbal communication.
Yes,
you know, you can convey a message to somebody that you know very well, and they know what, you know what I'm saying? It was that kind of thing. And they didn't say, hey, what do we do now? But that's what they were, their nonverbal communication. Their face was saying, hey.
That was one of the worst things during COVID. Me personally, not being able to read the expression on people's faces. For me, it's integral to having communication with someone. That's why when you were asking if I wanted you on video, yes, of course I want you on video. I want to be able to see your facial expressions. I want to be able to see how you're reacting to things. I want to see how you're reacting to how I'm talking. And I feel like that really hurt a lot of the younger kids that didn't have time to develop those, you know, social skills. And here they are, they're seeing people with masks, and now they have hard times reading social cues. So it's definitely, you can definitely read someone's face.
Right.
It's very important. So you tell these guys to knock it off. Basically, they look at themselves, look at each other, and they're like, "Well, what do we do?" So what do they do? Where do they go?
That's my last memory of them, because the New Yorker did an article and said that after about 10 minutes they left.
Okay.
That's the last time I don't know what happened after that, because everybody looked basically the same, you know.
It sounds like they were just
So,
there to agitate if they're only there for another 10 minutes.
well, the guy, there's an article in the New Yorker that he said that there were two types of people there, some that wanted to do damage and some who didn't. And these people realized that they couldn't do damage and they got mad and left, or something like that's not verbatim at all, but it's I took a screenshot because I figured it might get taken down. But
Yeah.
that's what the article said, that they, after about 10 minutes they got that they dipped, went somewhere else. But then I looked up and somebody was sitting in the president of the Senate's chair. And I was like, look, man, y'all, look, we can't be doing this. We can't disrespect this place. Like,
Yeah.
you know, and I really wanted to sit in that chair. Like, really, really wanted to sit in that chair. But I was like, no, you can't. I said, people that sit in that chair, that you like, you have to be a representative. You have to be elected to that place. That's like, you can't do that.
Yeah.
And they were like, well, they stole the effing election. I said, I know, man. I said, but I said we're a democracy, but I meant that in the we vote for this kind of things.
Yeah.
So
I get
people
what
want
you
to
mean.
know, well, it's not a democracy, it's a republic. I know it's a republic, but
Yeah. Yeah.
it's democratically elected republic, you know. But
Well, I really like one of the statements you said in regarding that exact situation on I forget exactly which interview it was, but you said, I do not respect the people that sit in that chair, but I respect what that position represents. Which
right,
I completely agree.
I think I'm pretty sure I told that guy that, or something similar to that. And then he was like, and then there's a guy, Larry Brock Jr., the guy that had the zip ties that he found on the ground, got in big trouble for that. He was in there, and he's like big as a house, you know. So I'm 5'6", 135 pounds at the time. You know, I'm not intimidating anybody, you know. And he walks in, he's like, yeah, you need to get out of that chair. Don't be disrespectful. And they were like, yes, sir, right away, sir. You know, so they got up, and then somebody else got in it. And then he was like, once he was there, he was like he was doing what I was trying to do, and he was doing it very successfully. And the adrenaline had all run out, and I was like, I had to sit down. And my dad, like, I called my dad because I could call him on the phone, and within 30 seconds, he'll say, hey, your blood sugar's low. He could just tell by talking to me. So I needed to check it. So I just called him. I was like, and I said, hey, how you doing? He's like, oh, you know, I said, well, you're not going to believe where I am. I'm on the Senate floor, because I was sitting down on the floor. And he was like, well, you might want to get out of there. They're setting y'all up. And I said, all right. But I said, I just want to check. I said, how does my sugar sound? He goes, you sound okay, but you need to get out of there. Like, all right, you know. And then the Jake Chansley guy walks in, and he's like, no, you know. And then the cop comes over, and he's like, hey, are you okay? I was like, yeah, man, I'll be all right, you know. He's like, well, I really appreciate it if y'all would leave. Y'all, it'd be nice if y'all got out of here. And I said, look, man, I said, I'm just trying to make sure they don't wreck the place. I said, as soon as you get some backup. I didn't say that, but that's kind of what I wish I'd have said that, but you know, that was what I was.
That was the thought you were having. You were like, I want to protect this place. That there was, because at the time there were how many were there any officers in the room, or was that the only one?
The only one, and he was my size, and and he was behaving like he was outnumbered, you know, and I could tell. It's like there's no way he could have made me leave, and I knew that, and I did kind of take advantage of that. But I was like, I'm your backup, you know, like I'm not going to let them trash the place, like. That was kind of what I was thinking, but you know, I got in trouble for that too, because I was asked to leave and I didn't.
Right.
You know, he didn't tell me. If he said, get out now, I'm a cop, I'm telling you to get out now, I'd have said, all right, fine, good luck, man.
Yeah, I think it's the way he, like, I get why he asked that way, because obviously he's outnumbered, like you said. He's trying to have a good interaction and de-escalate, but he should have demanded that you leave. That is true.
Well, it wasn't long after that. I think they said I was in the Senate about 20, 22 minutes, something like that. And then when his backup showed up, it was a bunch of big, huge, like, you don't want to mess with these guys kind of cops, you know?
Yeah.
And they all walked in with all the plastic riot gear and stuff. And they lined up like on one side of the walkway to get out the door. And I was like, all right, y'all, it's time to go. And everybody was like, all right, well, I guess it's over. Let's get out of here.
Yeah.
And we all walked out, and we're like, hey, thank you for your service. We back to blue. Like, every single person that walked out of there was like thanking the cops.
Yeah.
It was weird. Like, of course, you never saw any video of that, you know. So,
Right. I
but
have seen
everybody was
videos of
like,
them going on tour with the cops though.
well, they were being super respectful. Like it was like, you know,
Well, for
you could
the
tell.
amount of people, there wasn't as much damage as you would have thought for a riot, right? Like there was minimal damage. I mean, there was a lot of broken windows and stuff like that, but for the amount of people and for like how far you guys got into the Capitol, yeah, you would have expected a lot more damage. Especially, in my opinion, completely my opinion, if it was the other political party, if it was a left leaning protest, I feel like there would have been a lot more damage had a similar situation happened.
Well, 1983, leftists bombed the Congress.
Well, there's also May 25th where they firebombed the White House and they set fire to the building next to St. John's Church. You know, Donald Trump went into the bunker and they made fun of him for going into the bunker, even though the White House grounds were being firebombed.
Bunker baby.
Yeah.
Yeah. I thought that was the 29th.
I believe it's May 20th. I might have been the 29th. I think the protest went on for a few days, so we might both be right on that.
Right.
So,
but yeah, Tim Pool talks about that all the time, and I brought that up to my lawyer, and he had no idea what I was talking about. And he works in.
I don't know if there was any charges related to that incident.
Well, what's funny is about 60 people got arrested, and they filed a couple of people pleaded out before it was over with, so they didn't get off of their charges, and they were like misdemeanors, you know. But like they got like $60 million split up between them because the cops shot like little bitty rubber balls at them, and it didn't hurt anybody, but the cops used a show of force before they had like the same lawsuit that we're going to do, most whatever lawsuit, because you're supposed to have an amplification device and give 3 warnings and like you need to leave this way. There's like a rules about it, and because the Antifa people, the cops broke the law, they were talking on the news about how evil the cops were, and they wound up getting like $60 million split up between them.
I heard about that. Yeah.
Crazy and so basically, no. Yeah, that's crazy.
Where's your 60 million? Where's yours?
Right.
Before I forget, that's exactly what I wanted to ask too. Before we carry on down the rest of the story of that day, I'm sure I already know the answer, but were there any repercussions for that cop that shot you? Do you even know who it was?
They showed there was a guy standing right beside him with a camera, and they showed but I couldn't pick him out of a lineup. I don't know.
Like, so you don't know his name or anything, and as far as you know, nothing happened to him, right? In regards to that,
he probably got promoted.
Okay, right? No, you're probably right.
Killed a woman, and he got promoted. And that girl that female cop that beat Roseanne Boylan to death while she was unconscious on the ground, she got promoted.
That's insane.
So, yeah, you kill Christians or Trump supporters, you get promoted.
Yeah, and if you do anything to leftists, they demote you or put you on leave permanently.
Or worse.
Or worse, yeah. I mean, I was gonna bring up Derek Chauvin, but that's a whole other thing. Yeah,
I watched that because when I was in DC, I had a tablet, and I was watching it because I thought if they ever send me to Gen Pop and Derek Chauvin don't get convicted, I might want to just stay in solitary. Because I was like, it was really concerning to me because like they were like that's a whole nother story. But that dude did not get justice at all. Yeah, like they voted him. Because I heard somebody cut a pig's head off and put it on one of his properties on the post of his property and said, if you don't convict him, this is going to be you.
I hadn't heard about that. That's crazy.
Yeah. Well, I haven't heard about it since it happened, but it was right there.
Well, they don't want any sympathy for Derek Chauvin. They just want him to be the bad guy, and they don't want to talk about anything in relation to George Floyd or the drugs that were in his system or anything like that.
Yeah,
but we could, like you said, we could do a whole nother show about that. So, but so you're in the Senate chamber. The big guys come in, and you're like, all right, that's it, time to go. Where do you kind of go from there?
That was pretty much the end of it. I walked. They escorted us basically and said, "Go here." And there was a cop at each like turn. Go here, and there was no violence. There was no like everybody was just walking single file, like we were going to the lunchroom at school, kind of thing. It was just, you know. So we walk out, we get outside, and it was like, uh, it went from being hot to being cold, you know. So
Yeah.
I got out, and I'm like, well, I guess that's it. What do I do now? So I went to the other side, and uh, people kept talking to me, and actually, I got interviewed inside of those trailers because I was actually going in there because I was cold, and people just wouldn't leave me alone. Like ever, like I couldn't walk anywhere without people, and I was trying to pray, you know, and
Yeah.
everybody just like nobody. I could not be left. Everybody just constantly coming up to me and saying stuff. I actually got rude with one guy, and I felt bad about it, but I was like, "I'm okay," you know. It was like, but there was like 9 people inside of like 2 minutes, like
I would say you
so,
hear
like
the same question 50 times in the span of like
yeah,
an hour or two. You're gonna get a little annoyed.
I needed a hat that says "I do not need medical,"
Yeah.
you know,
You're like,
like
I am fine, go away.
right. But I mean, they were people were concerned. It was gruesome. I mean, it was like if you see the pictures, it's like
Yeah.
my wife posted on Twitter. She was like, somebody said that, oh, you didn't really get shot. And she's like, oh, I can vouch for him. She's like, it looks a lot better now because you can't see his teeth through the side of his face or something like that. You know?
Right.
It's like,
No.
yeah, you could see teeth from outside. Like,
Yeah,
eh.
I saw someone you replied to on Twitter saying like the way you got shot, it looked like it didn't even hit you that hard or something like that, and you're like, oh yeah, sure.
I've
So,
got X-ray pictures. You
yeah, no,
know,
I saw you share I saw you were sharing the X-ray pictures to some of the people commenting on that. It's just funny that like regardless of how you feel about that day, because depending on which political party you ask, they'll say it was a mostly peaceful protest. If you ask Republicans or if you ask Democrats, they'll say it's the worst insurrection, worst thing that's ever happened to the country. I kind of feel like it's a little bit more in between there. There was a lot of people, such as yourself, that were there just to be kind of a peacekeeper. They wanted to protest the election. Much like you, I feel like there was a lot of wrongdoing in the election in 2020, but ultimately Joe Biden did win. He ended up being president. So regardless of how you feel about what happened, he won at the end of the day, and it is what it is. But now it doesn't matter, right? You know, we have Trump coming into office, so hopefully he can improve things. What I did want to ask is, oh, sorry, you wanted to go ahead?
well, I was going to say that in hindsight, it's kind of a good thing that they stole the election because God opened people's eyes and let them say, okay, you want to run the country? Like, let's see how that works out for you.
Right.
And people got to see that's why it was such a landslide. And I guarantee you they stole votes. I guarantee you they cheated. They just couldn't cheat enough. And there were way too many people watching. So we had a lot more safeguards this time.
Yeah.
And a lot like we had a better ground game, like we did a better job. But like the fact that they were able to run this country into the ground in 4 years,
Yeah.
it opened up people are like, wow, like maybe, you know, my money was a lot better. I saw this dude entering. He was questioning a black dude. He's like, I hate Trump, but man, my money sure was better. You know, like
Everyone
and
I
then like
ask, everyone I talk to, yeah, that everyone says that. Even people that don't like Trump, they're like, yeah, I don't like what he says. I don't like his rhetoric, blah blah blah. But I did have more money when he was president, and
right,
that's just a universal fact in this country right now. Regardless of who
right,
you are, under Trump, we had more money. That's just a fact.
right, right.
But
But
what I wanted to ask you is, have you been contacted by anyone in Trump's camp or Trump's administration about being pardoned?
no,
No.
I haven't.
T- t-
I'm waiting till the 20th to look into it because
right.
I actually I'm on a Telegram channel. It's like for J6ers only and their family only. It's like
Mm,
a closed group. It's like a support group kind of thing.
yeah.
But that one of the girls or the women in there was going to see Trump. She had an appointment or something, and she
Okay.
was said write a letter to him, and I wrote like a 1 page letter. I was trying to, you know, I had a lot more I wanted to say, but I figured if he had 50 letters to read, you know, I just kept it short and said, hey, you know, like
Shorter the
here's
better.
kind.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was trying to keep it condensed, but it was like 3 paragraphs, maybe 4. You know, so I wrote. That's the only contact I've made.
Mm.
You know,
Well, the reason I wanted to ask you is because the lectern guy, I forget his actual name, but lectern guy, he was on Tim's show, and he was exact that
yeah,
same question by a caller. So I was just curious if you had been contacted by anyone. Second question: do you know lectern guy? Did you meet him that day?
no.
No, you guys
And
didn't
if I had,
interact.
I wouldn't. If I had, I wouldn't even known it.
Right. So, well,
But
I was just
if
curious
I'd have
about
known,
that.
if I'd have known he was going to get on Timcast, I would have like said, "Hey, man, like give him my number." That's because I had a dream when I was in prison that I was on the show, and I thought that's impossible. But when I got out, I was like, "There's like I've done like 8 or 10 interviews,
Yeah.
and I had a dream that I was on the show, and I never dream. I mean, maybe once a year, but it was so real. It was like Ian was sitting across from me, and it was like, and I was preaching the gospel to Ian, and he was like I started like God put Ian Crossing on my heart really big. So I've been praying for him for a couple years now. But
A
like,
culture war episode with you and Ian would be fantastic. I'd watch that.
right,
That'd be great.
that,
But
but I would, but I dreamed about being on the show, and I never dreamed. So I really, I don't know if it's God. I can't say it was a godly dream or nothing, but like, I really, really, really want to get on that show. I'd rather get on that show than Joe Rogan,
yeah,
which I'd love to be on that one too. But
right.
leading Joe Rogan to the Lord would be the bomb. That would be like, I can go to heaven now. I'm done.
Yeah. Well, I think it would be really interesting to see you on the shows. You have a really interesting story. You have a lot of information about that day. I had not even heard about your story. Of course, I had seen your pictures and stuff before, but I didn't know the full extent of your story. It's absolutely crazy. We didn't go all the way into the discussion about you in jail. So after you get sentenced, what exactly were you charged with? Like, what were you convicted of?
It was 3 felonies for the knife and then 2 misdemeanors. It was basically trespass and disorderly conduct. I don't remember exactly what it was. 2 misdemeanors. I got a month each for that. And I got 20 months each for the felonies, but they ran them concurrently. So I only had, instead of doing 62, I did 22.
Mm.
So I did 14 and a half because Trump's First Step Act, which everybody in prison loves him for. Like, you get for every, how does it work? I think for every month you do, you get a week off or something like that, or 2 weeks off, or so I think it's you get you get 3 credits for every two you do, basically. But it's
Okay.
only a month. If you do a week, it don't count. It's got to be a full month.
Yeah.
So for every 3 months you do, or 2 months you do, you get 3 months. I may be wrong about that. It's been a while. It's been 7 months. So, but it took me a while to get my release date because it kept changing.
Mm.
And they weren't smart enough to just go ahead and add it up. They would. It was crazy.
So after you get sentenced and stuff like that, you still have the hole in your face. It was still slowly closing, or had it closed by that point?
Oh, it had closed before I got out of the gulag in DC.
Okay.
I was in there for like 3 months.
Okay.
So
it took about 3 months to heal, or
no, it was healed before I got out.
okay.
So
Yeah.
because my sister drove up there to pick me up, and well, that's another story. My dad keeps getting mad at me for not sharing it, and I need to share it because it's pretty bad. But they let me off. I went to court on video at like noon ish, 11, 12 o'clock, and they were like, "All right, release him." And then they didn't release me until 7 p.m. in Washington D.C. in the winter,
Mm.
and it was like 40 degrees outside. The wind was blowing, and I had like $300 on my books, and they wouldn't give me the money. They're like, "You got to come back tomorrow at 9 o'clock." No cell
Did
phone.
they say why?
That's just how they do it.
So they release you without it, like any cash or anything, and then they're holding your cash, and they're like, "Just come back tomorrow for it."
Yes.
That doesn't make any sense. That's ridiculous.
So I wound up sleeping in the bushes outside because I sat on the porch because the air circulating thing from the heat was blowing out there, and it was a lot warmer than it was outside. So I was just going to sit on the porch, and it was out. You couldn't even see me from the windows, and I was out of the way. I wasn't bothering anybody, and they ran me off. They were like, "If you don't, we're going to get you for trespassing." I'm like, "I don't like. You got my money. I don't have a coat. Like, what am I supposed to do?" So
Yeah,
I wound up
stay warm.
I wound up walking about probably 10 miles, and went to a church. And this is kind of bad, but I went to a church, and he was like, "Hey, can I help you?" And they were having, it was I was out on a Thursday, and I walked by the sign that said Thursday meeting or whatever at like 7 p.m. And I was like, "Well, it's after 7. Maybe I can." So I went in there. I just wanted to go to church. I hadn't been to church in 3 months. So I went there and sat down. The guy was preaching, and when it was over with, it was like 4 or 5 people there, and he walks up to me, "Hey, can I help you?" I said, "Well, I just got out of jail. I said, the Lord sent me to the Capitol and I got arrested for it." And I said, my wife sent me some money on my Western Union or whatever. And I said, I could use a ride to go get it. He's like, "Oh, that's easy." And he walks me outside and he goes, "Just walk down that road and keep walking. You'll eventually run into it." And I'm sitting there like, it's 40 degrees outside and I don't have a coat, dude.
And you just
So I'm
asked
sitting
for a ride, and he said, "Oh, that's easy." Like, you would think he's gonna give you a ride.
there, right? I was
That's
like, wow,
terrible.
thanks a lot. Well, the Bible talks about the Good Samaritan. Um, how the priest walked by on one side of the road, and then the Pharisee walked by on the road and just said, "Oh, this never helped him." And then the Samaritan, which was basically the black guy at the Klan meeting. If you put it into context, the Samaritans and the Jews hated each other worse than blacks and whites ever did. So when Jesus said the Good Samaritan, he was basically saying to a Klan meeting, the good black guy. And that's why that was such an offense. Because when they asked him, said, "Who did the right thing?" And they didn't say the Samaritan, they said the one that showed mercy. They wouldn't even say the Samaritan because they hated them so bad. So I thought that was funny. But anyway, so another church that I was involved with, they said, "Whatever you do, don't tell them where you go to church." I said, "Well, what do I need some advice. Whatever you do, don't tell." And he said that like 5 times. I was like, "All right, bro." Like, he didn't ask me, like, like, it was cold. So I wound up going to another church. Anyway, so I go to that church and he's like, "No, I can't help you. And then I'm walking through there and my sugar got low. I didn't have any way to check it. So I had no idea what it was, and I couldn't do anything about it because I didn't have any money. And I'm
Yeah.
walking up, and I almost ran into this black dude. He was like a homeless black dude, and he just standing. I almost ran into him. I mean, I was like I almost kissed him. That's how, like, if he'd have been shorter, I'd almost kissed him. And he was like, "Whoa, blankety blank," and I was like, "Oh man," and my speech is slurring. It's like, I said, "Look, man," I said, "I just got out of jail. My blood," I take insulin for diabetes, and my sugar's low. I said, "I'm about to pass out, man." He's like, "Oh man," because we got some chicken and some French fries. And he's like, "Here you go, man, get some." So I grabbed the French fries, started eating them, and he's cracking open a bottle of wine. And he's like, "Hey, take one of them chicken fingers." And it was like big as my forearm. This is the biggest chicken finger I've ever seen in my life. So I grabbed a hold of that and I'm wolfing down because potatoes kick in really quick. They'll bring the sugar up fast. Chicken finger would take an hour. So
Yeah.
I didn't eat that. So I ate that and I ate that. And he was like, and he peels off 2 $5 beers. He goes, "Here, now get the F out of here." So I call that the good wino story because the 2 preachers didn't want to help me, but the wino like hooked me up, gave me food right away. Like, that was God.
Yeah.
He was cut like a sailor. He wasn't like an angel, you know what I'm saying? But he's like, hey, and he gave me $10. Homeless dude, wino, drinking. He's trying to get his drink on. He wasn't. And he gave me $10. Said, "All right, man, have a good one." I was like, wow. And by the time I got to the end of that block, which was probably 40 feet away, and I just stood there and I'm waiting on the potatoes to kick in. And I'm like, then I start like coming back around, and then I'm freezing. And it's like, so I tried to find, it was crazy. I walked all over town. I finally went to a McDonald's somewhere, and which was miles away, and got a warm cup of coffee. And I'm in there using their heat basically. Like, then they like, "You got to go." And I got kicked out of McDonald's. And then I wound up walking back to the prison because that's where my sister like was going to come get me. And so I got back and I was like, and I'd come back and I'd be gone for 2 or 3 hours maybe. And so I come back and I was like, I snuck under the bushes and I found a bunch of trash and was like stuffing it in my shirt and like I found some, those like, microfiber kind of, oh, that's the wrong word, but they're like those suits that the doctors wear, like the white ones, that are like
Oh yeah.
scrubbed outfit.
Yeah.
Well, I found one of them on the ground that was tore up, and I put it on over my stuff and started stuffing trash in it. And
Yeah.
I'm sleeping, and I'm shaking violently for like, I hurt my legs, like I was shaking so bad, and
Right.
I kept doing push-ups, and I'm freezing. And so I just laid on the ground and waited. My sister finally got there at like noon the next day, but as soon as the sun came out, I went and laid on the grass, because it was business hours, so they couldn't run me off. So I just laid in the grass and was like soaking up the sun, trying to get some actual sleep. And
Right.
everybody kept, "You okay? Are you okay?" And I was like, "Yes, thank you."
It'd be a lot better if I could sleep.
Like, But
No, that's an
yeah,
absolutely crazy story. You get turned away. You essentially turned away by two, you would think men of God, priests, and then you end up walking down the street and you come across a random guy just going about his business, and he gives you the food off his plate and a couple dollars, or $10.
he was sleeping right there. He had his like he was homeless,
Yeah,
and he was opening up a bottle of wine, like him and his homeboy. That you could smell weed everywhere. I don't know if he had any, but like it was. These guys were not like the church group. This was the dude was a wino. I call it the good wino instead of the good Samaritan.
yeah,
But the bad thing is they let me out with no money and no blood checking kit. They gave me insulin because they legally have to. But how am I going? Like if you can't check your sugar, you can't adjust it. Like you have to know what the numbers are in order to do the math to figure out what you know what I'm saying? And if you don't have any food, you can bring it down, you just can't bring it up. And if you can't bring it up, you go unconscious.
right.
So they tried to kill me, you know,
No,
like
that's absolutely that's yeah, no, that's another injustice definitely in your case. Not only do you get shot, you don't get it treated. They keep you in essentially solitary, even though it was a medical ward. But you had limited contact with other people, and then eventually, when you finally do get out, they release you onto the streets. 7 o'clock at night, no money, cold out, didn't give you a blanket, doesn't give you a jacket, gives you some insulin. They're like, all right, good luck, figure it out. That's insane. That's a terrible story.
yeah, if I had been for that wino, I would have passed out on the side of the road.
Right, and then who knows what would have happened? That's definitely miraculous. There's a miracle of sorts for sure. That because I mean you get turned away twice, and then the homeless guy helps you. I mean, like who would believe that? That's crazy.
Right.
But so you finally get some sleep. Hopefully, how long did it take for you to get picked up?
She got there at noon the next day. I got out at 7 p.m. I found out at about noon, and I went back and I called my sister and told her, and she's like, "Well, I'll be leaving here shortly." Which she wound up. She's got two kids, and like she's got her own life, and it
Yeah.
was, But she drove like 14 or 15 hours to come get me. Didn't sleep, and then she picks me up at noon, and like I drove. I stayed awake until we got like we were. As soon as I saw we pulled into Birmingham, and we're probably 25 miles from my house. I stayed awake the whole time, and then as soon as I saw Birmingham, I was like, next thing I know, we're in the driveway, and I was like, what happened? But there's a picture I use on my YouTube channel. It's the picture she took of me because I hadn't slept in like 2 days, except for that little 20-minute nap, but she took a picture of me getting out of the car, dropping me off. And that's the picture I use on my YouTube channel. But
Yeah.
it was like, oh, and another thing, when I was in jail, you couldn't get a haircut because of COVID. My mustache had grown down to like right here. I had to like stick it into my coffee, drink it, and then wipe the coffee off of my mustache was like that far past my lip. It was crazy.
Wow.
So the first thing we did was like, I had to go get a blood checking kit and some food. We went to Walmart, and I was going to go in with her, but I'd like pulled every muscle in my leg because I'd been atrophied because I'd had no exercise for 3 months.
Right.
So I was going to, I got out about 10 feet. I was like, Rachel, you're going to have to go take care of this. Like, there's no way I'm walking in there.
Yeah.
She's like, okay. So she went there and got me. I said, get me some scissors. And so as soon as I said, just hand me the scissors, I finally cut it off, like now I can, I feel normal again.
Right.
But yeah, it was crazy.
No, that's absolutely crazy. I don't want to miss anything from your story. Is there anything you feel like we didn't cover? Like, is there any other tidbits or information you feel like should be shared?
I mean, I've got a lot of stories. Most of them I've already shared on other interviews. I mean, but I can't think of nothing right now. God is good. I mean,
oh, I agree. Definitely. I'm still figuring out how I feel about all that. I've had questions about religion and stuff like that for a very long time. As of lately, I've definitely become. I would say I feel like I'm on the path to eventually becoming a Christian. I definitely feel like I'm on that path.
well, there's a
I wouldn't
simple
call myself one yet.
Well, the gospel, the Bible calls it the power of God unto salvation. And if you don't hear the gospel, there's no way to get saved. And the gospel is like, I can ask you a few questions. And like, if you got about 3 minutes, I can walk you through this real quick.
Yeah,
and then
sure.
have you ever told a lie in your whole life?
Oh, for sure.
What do you call people who tell lies?
Liars.
Okay. Have you ever stolen anything, no matter how small?
Yeah.
Okay. What do you call somebody who steals?
A thief.
No, a lying thief.
Lying thief.
Yeah, you're a liar and a thief. You said it out of your own mouth. I'm not judging you, but you said it.
Yep.
See what I'm saying? So if you go to heaven and you're judged by the 10 commandments, are you innocent or guilty?
I would be guilty, probably.
And what's the punishment for guilt when it comes to like after you die? It's hell, right?
Right.
Right. And you would deserve it because you've broke the law.
Yeah.
Okay. So how do you plan on paying that fine? Is it eternity in hell? Are you going to say, Lord, I don't deserve it? I call on the name of Jesus because he paid the penalty for you.
Right.
You deserve to go to, I deserve to go to hell. I earned it. I inherited it from my parents and I earned it on my own merits.
Yep.
I deserve hell. But God says, look, if you'll call on the name of the Lord, surrender your life to him, then he will forgive you of your sin. The penalty must be paid. God is just and the justifier.
Yeah.
He is just. He does not let any crime go unpunished. Eventually, there will be perfect justice. But you have to pay for your sin, or you can let Jesus pay it for you. I can't pay for my sin because you have to be perfect. The only people that go to heaven are perfect people.
Yep.
And nobody was perfect but Jesus. And when they killed him for a crime he didn't commit, he paid that price. His blood was shed and the penalty has been paid. But it's only been paid for those, because when you get to heaven, he's going to say, why should I let you into heaven? If you say, well, I'm a good person, sorry, you're out, exit stage left.
Yeah.
But if you say, Jesus paid my penalty, oh, okay, go right this way. We're welcome. Your name's in the book. If your name's not in the book, there's no, like, you can't pay your way in. There's nothing you can do to earn it. You don't deserve it. Yeah. You're a lying thief. You've already admitted it, and you've probably done things you're ashamed of, that you are ashamed of. You know what I'm saying? I've done things I hope nobody ever finds out about. But God,
I'm sure we all do. I'm sure we all do.
Yeah. God forgives you for that. And once you call on him, you surrender your life to him and start doing what he tells you, and you don't know what living is. If you call on the name of the Lord, the name Jesus Christ, and surrender to him, dude, it's hard to do because I love to sin, but the closer I get to God, the easier it is not to sin. Yeah. And the closer you get to him, the better things. If you've ever felt the presence of God, his peace, the fruit of the Spirit is love, joy, peace, gentleness, goodness, faithfulness, temperance, self-control. Like you can't get that anywhere. Everybody in the world wants love, joy, and peace, but there's nowhere to find it.
Yeah.
Except in him. And once you have his Spirit, the same Spirit that raised Jesus from the dead will come and live inside of you, and it'll make you a new person. All your sins completely disappear, and he makes your spirit perfect. Your mind and your body, they're still dirty. My mind, it's pretty easy for it to get sidetracked. And my body, all it wants to do is sin. It won't be right until I get to heaven. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But my spirit has been made perfect. It says, if any man be in Christ, you have to be in Christ. If any man be in Christ, he is a new creation that never existed before. You get a totally new spirit. You become a completely new. And then from the inside, he said, I would take the laws and I'll write them on their heart. There's so much, I can't explain it all, but it's like, you deserve to go to hell, and he's offering you an opportunity not to. And once you surrender to him and start reading the Bible, because another thing, you can't understand the Bible unless you're born again. Jesus said that. It's in red letters in my Bible. It said, except a man be born again, he cannot see the kingdom of God. Can't see it. Let me ask you something. What's your heart telling you? That part right here in the middle of your chest, you feel that, right?
Yeah. You
feel that? That's the Holy Ghost knocking on your door saying, let me in. Let me show you what life's really about.
Right.
And you know it.
Yeah, I've felt that my whole life. It's just like I said, it's my own journey in a way. I try like you said, it's a work in progress. I try to work things out. It's very conflicting when you want to sin, but it's wrong. It's difficult sometimes. But I feel like
Without the Holy Ghost, it's impossible.
yeah. I feel like that would be a great topic to have you on again. We can have you on and talk about that. I think that'd be a great topic. I'd love to have you on again. So we've gone on for almost 2 hours now. There was one question I did want to end with, unless there was anything else you wanted to go into before that.
I can't think of anything.
Well, I really enjoyed our conversation. The last question I wanted to ask is, what do you personally feel is the most important issue facing America today?
Oh man, I wish you'd have gave me a heads up on that one.
I mean, there's so many issues, right? Me personally, I can answer first while you're thinking about it. I think one of the biggest issues facing America right now is either between the transgender social contagion or the abortion issue. I feel very strongly about the abortion issue.
The biggest issue facing the world right now and America is that we're in a spiritual battle. It's light and darkness, good and evil. It's Jesus and the devil. And there's two sides. There's two sides, and if you're on the wrong one, your life is never gonna be great. Even if millionaires kill themselves, like what? Because there's no satisfaction in anything until you once you're living for because that's what it is. All this stuff that's happening. That's why people's eyes are being opened. And I think God's opening people's eyes to see the truth. I know He has a plan. He don't ask my advice on what that plan should be, and I wasn't there when He planned it because He didn't need my help. But there's a plan, and the more people he loves people, and he don't want to see anybody go to hell because they were conned out of their inheritance, and He don't want to see anybody go to hell. And and if you knew what they did to Jesus, you would it was not pleasant at all. It was the Passion of the Christ movie wasn't even close to how bad it was. It was way worse than that. I mean, I could go into detail, but it would be edited. You would get kicked off of YouTube. It was bad, and He paid that out because He wants you, specifically you. He has a plan for you and only you that nobody else can do. There's a scripture, and I think I'm not good at the addresses for the Bible. I think it's Psalm 139:16, but I could be wrong. But it says that before He even knit you together in your mother's womb, He had a plan for you. They set aside God and the Holy Ghost and the Father. They're all one, but they communicate together, and they're like, what's Tyler? Well, if Tyler, we can get him to do this. And then when he does this, we're going to do this. And then if he does, and they're working out 7 billion people trying to get all this. He's trying to get everybody to Him. He's trying to save everybody. And He's got a plan specifically for you that only you can do, I think at January 6th, there were supposed to be more people that could hear God's voice there, but they were like, God wouldn't tell you not to go to a prayer meeting.
Yeah.
I think there was a lot of that. There should have been more people there, and I think that's because God's got a plan. I don't know what your gifts are. He gives everybody gifts and talents and their spiritual gifts. That's a whole nother story that I can't even hardly explain, but He's got a specific plan for you and only you. And for everybody. There's things His whole plan for your whole life I need you to be at the corner of 5th and 3rd at 10 p.m. on a Saturday and just be standing there. That's the whole plan for your life. Probably not. But there may be some huge important thing. So me getting shot in the face, that was crazy, but it's you're interviewing me, I've been sharing the gospel all over the internet. How would I have ever gotten that opportunity?
Right.
I'm nobody.
I feel like just from your stories that you shared today, I feel like you getting hit in the face was also a part of that plan in a way, because with that hole in your face, people listened to you, that you were noticed a lot more during that day. So when you got into the Senate chamber and you went up to those guys, you told them to stop trashing the place. I feel like they wouldn't have listened to you as much if you had not been hit in the face.
Because it was pretty gruesome. I mean, it was I saw pictures of it and it was ugh, it was shocking.
Yeah.
People that aren't used to stuff like that, it was I was getting that reaction pretty much all day. People were women were going ugh,
right.
oh, get away, you're gross.
Like you said, it looked pretty gruesome from pictures. And I actually do have another question that I did forget to ask because we've had such a great conversation. It's hard to keep track of exactly everything I want to ask. So hopefully I haven't missed anything. But one other question I did want to ask, I should have asked it when I asked you about the pardons for Trump. How do you feel about the pardons? Do you think there should just be a blanket pardon, everyone gets pardoned, or do you think he should not? Like, is there some people that just shouldn't be pardoned, or do you think everyone should be?
Well, I'm kind of conflicted on that because I want to know who the instigators were. I want to find out, but I'm tempted to say just blanket pardon everybody, but I still want to know who. You know what I'm saying? Like, if they don't go to prison, fine. But I want to know what, like, because there was more to it than we're aware of.
Yeah.
It was a somebody planned something, and like the instigators, it was way too choreographed. It was way too, like, it was almost expert level riot starting. I mean, like, these people knew what they were doing. It wasn't like they had practice in the summer of love.
Yeah.
They knew what they were doing. So I want to know the truth. I want all the details to come out. But if they don't wind up going to prison for it, the people that hired them should go to prison.
Yeah.
Like, because if they've been in jail dealing with this for 4 years, forget it. They've had enough, you know?
Yeah,
So
no,
everybody
I think the majority
this,
of people have. I think the majority, if not all, have served the time that they should have served, and
I agree.
they shouldn't have people going after them anymore. I think one thing with the pardons is if a blanket pardon was issued, one good thing that could come from that is that people would be able to testify without repercussions. So then we could figure out more about that day. So a blanket pardon could actually be definitely beneficial because there could be a lot of people scared to come forward because they don't want to be, put in prison.
Yeah, because I'm not concerned about the private. I'm concerned about the generals.
Yes.
The major, like, let's get
someone had a plan that day. We don't know who planned it, but there was a plan for something. We don't exactly know what that plan was, but there was definitely agitators in that crowd. There was definitely instigators. The majority of the crowd was not there to get violent, but they were what is it? They were egged on. They were pushed into becoming violent. A lot of people, I feel like the people that did get violent that day, a lot of them were pushed to do so, and they were not there for that.
Right. Well, like I said about that guy grabbing the cop's face mask, and then he hits the other dude, and the other dude pushed him back. That dude, he wasn't there to be violent, but he was getting beat up by a cop with a baton.
Yeah.
I would have pushed him back too. It's a natural reaction. Somebody's hitting you. Like, after I got shot, I threw my arm up. I wasn't trying to hit anybody. I was trying to keep from getting hit again. If a dude would have been standing there, I would have pushed him because I didn't want to get hit again. I had all I wanted, like, one smack to the face was plenty, and if I'd have saw a cop swinging back or like rearing back to hit me, I'd have definitely knocked him over if I could, like, or I'd grab the baton. I would have fought. I would have fought to not get hit in the head with a baton again. Wound up not being a baton, but you see my point. Like, I could have easily, if it had have been a cop with a baton, I could be one of the violent ones, and I deserve a pardon because I wasn't there to do anything, so.
I definitely agree. I don't think you did anything wrong. I don't think you should have been charged with the knife felonies. That doesn't make any sense. I mean, senators and stuff, that was an issue. I know during Biden's presidency, they were told that they are not allowed to have their firearms or their weapons. But we have a Second Amendment in this country, and if you can't have your Second Amendment at the people's house, the Capitol building, then where could you have it? Which I do get the security issues that come along with that, but if you sacrifice your rights for security, you'll get neither. So
the thing about it is, would you really want a bunch of people going to a Trump rally with guns?
Well, that's the other issue too. It's definitely situational.
I guarantee you a leftist would shoot Trump.
They already did. They already tried.
I know, but I'm just saying, if they had like 50 people out with guns, like, I guarantee you it was like, hey, I'll be famous. I'll never have to get money on my books,
Right.
Like, I mean, so I can understand there's, at a private event, if the people in charge of that event say no guns, fine,
Definitely.
But you can't tell me that because I'm a convicted felon, I can't own a gun. I thought they were God-given rights.
Right.
See, the government took away my God-given right, so I can't even go hunt and kill a deer, get some food for my family.
I know.
And I can shoot a bow. I suck at it. Like I've tried, but I just don't have the talent.
Are you allowed
And I'm
to?
not.
Are you allowed to own a bow, or is that something they would bar you from having too?
I think I used to work for a guy who was a felon, and he hunted all the time. And he said, as long as it don't have a trigger, you can own it.
Interesting. Wait, so that
Like
means
he can't have a crossbow, but he could have a compound bow.
Wow.
So
Okay. Interesting. So with that, like, you were charged with a felony for having a knife on Capitol grounds, right? So, are you allowed to own knives?
I've got one on right now.
So
Crazy.
so you got charged because you had a knife on you, and now you can't own guns.
Well, maybe if I'd have had a gun, they wouldn't let me have a knife. I'm not sure how that works.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I'm not exactly sure how that works either. But
crazy.
Well, we'll go into our closing statements here. It was I'll give you the last word. I just want to say it's been a pleasure meeting you. I would love to have you on again. We can have you on for a lot of different topics. Maybe not just January 6th. Maybe I could have you on again to talk more about it if we missed anything. But I feel like we covered a lot today. But I would be more than happy to have you on again to talk about whatever else you would want to talk about. But with that, I'll give you the last word.
Well, I don't really know what I want to say. I thought it was pretty smart of you to call into Timcast and drop your handle for YouTube. That was pretty smart.
I'm trying to get my name out there.
Got you. I got you. I'm on X at Preacher of Christ, Preacher O Christ. It's not of, it's O Christ. It's Joshua Mathew Black. I'm trying to work on that. I want to get YouTube going, but I haven't really got there yet. I love to talk to people. I love to talk about the Lord and politics. So this was perfect. I mean, anytime you wanted to do another interview, let me know. I hope your channel blows up eventually. I mean, quickly would be great.
Right.
But remember what I said about the Lord. You don't deserve it, but He's giving it to you if you'll accept it.
Well,
So that's
with that, I actually did want to ask, if you were to make a YouTube channel, what kind of videos would you make? I could see you doing like street preach. Like, have you seen people that go out on the streets and do street preacher and they talk to people one-on-one? I could see you doing that. That would be really interesting.
Well, now that I'm a convicted felon, like I want to go to Birmingham, but like I haven't been to Birmingham since I've been involved in this because I don't go there without a gun.
Yeah.
Because it's been the deadliest mid-sized city for like 40 years or something, So it's not the kind of place you want to go without a gun. So
right.
But once I get pardoned and I can carry again, then I've actually been thinking about that a lot. But the kind of YouTube I wanted to do was like, and it may not be the platform, but I would like to just do live streams and then respond to the comments. That's what I would really like to do. But you'd have to have enough, but not too many people on there, So like Timcast, you probably couldn't do it because it's flying by.
Oh yeah, but like on the Discord, Discord or the YouTube chat, you see it. It's just fluttering away. Yeah.
Well, and I wouldn't want to have 1 million people if I had 1,000 people, but I would want it to reach people. Like I like to talk to people. I love talking to people, and because I know the truth, and the truth will set you free.
Right.
So if I can convince one person, if one person gets saved because of this, I'm as happy as I can be. And I would go to prison for a year if I knew for a fact one person would get saved because of it. And I would go to prison the rest of my life if I knew that one person would get saved every year. Yeah, I'd never want. I'd love prison. If I knew for a fact one person gets saved, because that's the Bible says that the angels throw a party. They start dancing and screaming and hollering. All of heaven erupts. It's like party time in heaven when one person gives their life to the Lord. So that's the only thing that matters. People going to hell and people going to heaven. You pick which one you want to do.
Yep.
And you're never going to be good enough ever, but He can make you holy. He can make you righteous, and He can make you pure and perfect. And you'll never do it. I'll never do it. Like, I'm way too tempted,
Yeah, people say it all the time. You'll never. No one's perfect, right? There was only one perfect person, and He died on the cross, right?
There was one perfect person, and they killed him.
Yep. So,
Yeah.
but all right. Well, with that, we can end the show. Like I said, I wanted to give you the last word. So just think about what you want to shout out. I'm just going to tell everyone, thank you guys so much for watching. Subscribe to the channel. I hope to be doing more interviews like this. I will likely have Joshua on again to talk about whatever we decide to talk about next. It was really great to have Joshua on today. And thank you guys for tuning in. With that, I'll let Josh shout out what he wants to shout out. And Josh, I will link everything in the description below, whatever you want me to share.
Yeah, follow me on Twitter at Preacher O Christ. And that's pretty much my only social media. I've got a YouTube channel. It's Let Us Talk. I think it's 8796. I have 0 videos on there, so I'm eventually maybe going to post something on there, but there's nothing on there yet. So, but I'm pretty active on Twitter right now, trying to get the word out, trying to tell jokes, trying to be funny, politics, humor, and Jesus. That's pretty much all I talk about. So it's Preacher O Christ on X.
Well, I'll make sure to link that in the description down below. Please go check out his X account for any updates that Joshua posts. Is there any way for anyone to support you if they want to, help out in any way?
Yeah, I've got a Give, Send, Go. I haven't looked at it in a while, but it's Give, Send, Go / Joshua Black. I did pretty well when I was on the Cowboy Logic show, and but most of that money's gone. So.
Well, I'm not sure how much traction you'll get from here, but I will definitely be sure to link that in the description down below if we can.
But
Well,
I gave away a lot of it, so I'm not selfish.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for coming on, Josh. I hope to have you on again.
Yeah, man, I really enjoyed it. I appreciate it.
Awesome. Thank you. As always, thank you guys so much for tuning into the video today. I greatly appreciate it. If you want to support me and support what I do, make sure you hit that like button, thumbs up, whatever you're watching from. If you are watching me from YouTube, go over to Rumble. If you're watching me from Rumble, go over to YouTube. Up to you. Always appreciate the extra follow. You could also follow me on X at Tyler Today News or at Tyler Rittenhour, which is my full name. Tyler Today News, YouTube, Tyler Today News, Rumble. Or if you want to go ahead and watch me over on Twitch for when I stream. I also stream at 1:30 Pacific Standard Time, but I do stream from all 3 platforms. I just stream on Twitch as well, just to, have my name out there on Twitch as well. But as always, thank you guys for tuning in. Peace out.